up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 499. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line all the way from Denver, Colorado, it's Luis Scott-Vargas. Luis, it's time for the Rare and Mythic Rare show for M20. Are you stoked or are you not? Be honest.
Oh, I'm excited. I have been really pleased with M20. You know, we got to do our set review. We've actually gotten to watch people stream it on Twitch because they have that, like, the early access streamer event. And it's a really cool set. This has exceeded my expectations for a core set, and I believe I'll be drafting a fair amount of it.
Oh, there we go. That's about the biggest compliment we can give, of course, is taking our time and effort and money and everything and drafting the dang thing. So today we're going to go over every single rare and mythic rare in depth so that you'll know if that's a first pickable bomb or a passable unplayable.
We're going to try a new thing here on LR. We're actually going to do all of them but one, and you'll have to just determine which one, you know, based on your knowledge of the set.
I feel like we did that once, or at least we were accused of it.
No, we definitely reviewed everything, including Scrap Trawler, so I think that...
I like the curveball.
No one noticed either.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah, we got to keep our listeners on their toes. You don't want it to be too easy. We can't give you all the information. You just waltz into that pre-release and crush everybody. And by the way, this is pretty cool. Since they put up the set so early, we're actually getting the rare and mythic rare out before the pre-release, which is great because these rares do matter, you know, in your pool. Before we get into that, we got to thank our sponsor, channelfireball.com. If you want M20, you can get it right now on channelfireball.com. Pre-order it. That's right. You can get in there. You can get singles or booster boxes or any combination that you need. Once it's ready to be sold, meaning once Wizards of the Coast gives CFB the go-ahead, they'll throw it in the mail and they'll get it to you as quickly as possible. This way, you're just done. You put in your pre-order and then you just wait and you know you're going to get it as soon as you possibly can. So head on over to channelfireball.com there. And then also something kind of cool, if you want to get free shipping on it and you happen to be going to a Magic Fest in your area, you can actually use Magic Fest Pickup to have it delivered to the Magic Fest that you're going to. So, you know, these are what we used to call Grand Prix. Now there's a Grand Prix that takes place at a bigger event called a Magic Fest. And Channel Fireball runs these. So it's awesome. It means that if you happen to be going to one, you can get any order delivered free to that Magic Fest that you're going to, and you're going to be there anyway. So again, channelfireball.com for the details, and I'll put a link in the show notes as well where you can click and see how it works. But it's pretty easy. You just choose that as your shipping method, and you won't have to pay for shipping, and you can just go up to the booth at the Magic Fest and pick it up. So lots of options always forming over at Channel Fireball, and that's just another one of those. The show is also brought to you by you, dear listener, via the Patreon. Thank you so much. Really, thank you so much to each and every person who supports the show on Patreon. It means the world to us, and it enables us to keep doing the thing that we love to do and to keep bringing you the show each and every week. And we're honored that you would take the time to check out the page and support us. That's patreon.com/limited resources. Okay, so M20 set review, rare and mythic rare. First things first, the grading scale overview, Luis. How does it work?
So A's are just the best cards in the set. We all know that. B's are. I told Marshall I was gonna wing it, and he disagreed.
I'm just like, come on. We all know that. Really welcoming to new listeners, Luis. Well done.
All right. Look, I'm a little feisty today, thanks to my crushing Team Modern Super League victory yesterday, where I didn't win any matches.
Is that what it is?
But my team carried. Anyways, A's. So these are the best cards in the set. These are the cards that everyone considers bombs. These are game winners. These are cards that tend to be good in a lot of situations, especially when behind. These are the best cards in the set, and sometimes they're hyper-efficient spells. So looking at World of Spark, we've got like Nissa, who shakes the world, Ugin, the ineffable, God Eternal, Oketra. These are just the kind of cards that you always slam them when you see them. B's are cards that actively pull you towards their colors. These are the cards that you're happy to take in the first couple picks. When you see them third or fourth pick, it means you feel good about being in those colors. So these are, cards like Solid Removal, examples like Leyline Prowler, Ugin's Conjurant, Flux Channeler, Jaya's Greeting. These are the kind of cards that you're just very happy about, but not quite bombs. C's are playable. These are what we call the Pawns of Limited. Every deck ends up with a bunch of them. You basically always play them, but you're also not all that excited to do so. You tend to take them 5th through 10th pick sort of thing. Cards like Enforcer Griffin, Pollen Bright Druid, even Eternal. These are cards that are sometimes playable, but you'd prefer not to run them. You're pretty unhappy when you do have to put these cards in your deck. They tend to be your last couple cards. Slow and bad removal, mediocre combat tricks, cards like Charity Extractor, Ironclad Crovod, Ward Scale Crocodile. Fs are just unplayable in basically every scenario. Cards like Demolish, Arboreal Grazer, cards that have super high mana costs like Omniscience. These are just cards that you would expect to never play in your deck, and you'd be surprised if you see them on the opponent's side. Sideboard cards. So we have two subcategories. One is sideboard, where these are cards you wouldn't want to main deck, and in this set in particular, there's actually a bunch of these, where you wouldn't want to main deck them, but they can be very powerful out of the sideboard. In M20, the Color Hosers are good examples, though we'll talk about those, or we talked about those as they came up in the Common Uncommon review. Mm-hmm. And then for War of the Spark, you had cards like Forced Landing, Return to Nature, Topple the Statue. Lastly, we have Build Around. So these are cards that by themselves, they don't do it. They're synergy cards that need help to be good, but if you have the support, it can be very good. Cards like Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, Sahili, Sublime Artificer, Karn, the Great Creator. Again, these are cards that can be quite powerful. Some are worth first picking, but you do have to know what they need in order to make them that good.
That's right. All right, so let's get into it. We'll start with white, just like we did on the commons. Well, I suppose we started with gold, but we're going to start with white here. First card up, Ajani, Strength of the Pride. This is 2 white for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker at Mythic Rare. So we're kind of back to that. The +1 here. So this is huge. 4 mana +1 on 5. You're at 6 loyalty already. The turn that Ajani comes down, you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control plus the number of Planeswalkers you control. Okay. The -2, still leaving you with a pretty beefy 3 loyalty, is create a 2/2 white cat soldier creature token named Ajani's Pridemate with whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Pridemate. Dang. And then the 0. And normally we see an ultimate here that would be -8 or -9 or something like that. This one's 0. If you have at least 15 life more than your starting life total, exile Ajani, Strength of the Pride, and each artifact and creature your opponents control. So if you can get up to that high life total, you can just play this and immediately exile all your opponent's creatures and still have a 5 loyalty Ajani.
Well, no, you exile Ajani.
Sorry.
Ajani also helps you get there with the +1, right? You can play this gain 5, gain 6, whatever. So I think Ajani's really good because think about it this way. Ajani's Pridemate, it's actually a real card. It's funny. This is one of the few cards that makes like another real card.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. It's weird.
Llanowar Mentor from Time Spiral, or I guess it was Future Sight, made Llanowar Elves. So there's a little bit of precedent. But so Ajani's Pridemate's a 2 mana, you would pay 2 mana for it normally and is generally worth it. This comes into play, makes an Ajani's Pridemate, has 3 loyalty, and then if you can +1 next turn, will buff the Ajani's Pridemate. Or you can make a second Pridemate, still have Ajani in play, and then start using the +1 if you're able to defend Ajani. That's really good. Because there's a lot of board situations where if they don't have like a flyer in play, you play this and they're just under a ton of pressure and Ajani defends itself and then works up as you gain a bunch of life and buffs all those Pridemates and eventually could even get to the ultimate because getting to 35 is not out of this world when Ajani's +1 is gaining you 4 to 7 life per activation.
Yeah, absolutely. Dang. So yeah, that card's fantastic.
The main drawback to Ajani is that if they do have a flyer, imagine they have like a 2/2 flyer in play, it takes its lumps. But even then, Ajani has such high loyalty, and you don't have to -2 it. You can just play it and +1 it. Mm-hmm. I think Ajani is an A-. I don't think it's like the best card in the set, but I don't think you're ever passing this if you open it, pick one, pack one.
Yeah, I agree. I think A- for Ajani, Strength of the Pride. That card just has everything going right. It all works towards the same type of goals. There's nothing incongruent about it. Next is Bishop of Wings. This is white for a 1/4 human cleric at rare. It says, whenever an angel enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. Okay. And whenever an angel you control dies, you get a 1/1 spirit token with flying. So we have a 2 mana 1/4, which is already fine, although it is double white, so a little tricky to cast in some scenarios. And then it just has this sort of random angel synergies. I'm not sure how much I actually care about that particularly. Especially for limited. Here, let me do a quick search and see how many angels there are. There's Angelic Guardian, Angel of Vitality, Dawning Angel, and Herald of the Sun. So there's 4, but one of them's rare.
Yeah, but and there's 1 common and 2 uncommon. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
So I think the best way to evaluate Bishop is how many angels would you need before you think this card is good? Because it is a build around.
I don't know, 1. I mean, it's still a 1/4 for 2. If I'm interested in that, then I can just sort of view the rest as being free rolled.
I think at 1 angel I would play this. At 0 angels I would play it if I really wanted a 2-mana 1/4, which is like something a control deck wouldn't mind having. And at 2 or 3 angels, this card starts getting pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. Also, remember the blue-white deck in this format is a flyers deck, and a 1/4 on the ground for 2 mana is kind of on theme too.
So Bishop of Wings is this weird space where it's not exactly a build around because I could see playing it without angels, but it clearly gets better with angels. It is a synergy card. I think my overall grade for this is just a C.
Yeah, but that seems right because it would be a D-ish or something without the angel text. It would just be like a card you would occasionally run. Yeah.
But I think it's not that hard to imagine getting a couple angels and having this card overperform. So I like C for Bishop of Wings. It's an interesting one. It's not going to come up too often as a rare, but keep it in mind.
Agreed.
If you do open this, keep in mind that you could pick up a couple angels and this can be pretty good.
Yeah, there you go. Next is Brought Back. It's also white. This one's an instant at rare. Choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield. This turn, return them to the battlefield tapped. Oof. That's pretty finicky.
This is very clearly a card that was in Modern Horizons and just got put into M20. I would be willing to bet quite a bit that that's what happened. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
This has a lot of potential in Modern with like fetch lands and that kind of thing.
Oh, it certainly does, doesn't it?
Yeah, and in Standard and in Limited, I'm not really buying it. This is kind of like a bad Zombify because yes, it's cheaper and yes, it could be a 2-for-1. But a lot of the times you're not going to be able to use this because you have to have it up exactly the turn that your things die.
Yeah. So the 2 scenarios that come to mind are, one is if there's some type of mass combat where you trade off 2 creatures. And another one is if you have like a sacrifice outlet. But the second one is really not that exciting because you need to be getting some pretty serious value out of your sack outlet to make this worth it. The other one is, I mean, if I go attack you with my 2 3/3s and you're like, I'll block with my 2 3/3s and then I bring them both back, that's good. But it's just such a narrow use case,
I think this feels like a D+ to me.
Yeah. It's whatever. I'm not excited about it.
It could be a solid sideboard card. It's great against people with sweepers. So like if they have planar cleansing or something, and you can prepare for that. It's good against people with expensive removal spells. Because, again, you have the opportunity to plan for it. They have like some 4 and 5 mana removal spells, and you're like, okay, I'm going to keep this up. And it gets a little better, if you have sack outlets or you have creatures with good end of the battlefield abilities. But for the most part, it just seems a little too situational for my taste.
It's a little narrow. Yeah, another use case I could see for it would be if I had like, let's say I had like a 4 mana angel that I really wanted to protect or something like that. I could see putting this in my deck against like black-red out of the sideboard or something along those lines and trying to set it up so that if I felt like that card would keep me, would win the game for me if it survived, I could bring a Brought Back and just wait to cast it until I had 6 mana, something like that. Very narrow, though. D+ for Brought Back. Next is Cavalier of Dawn. It's 2 white. So 5 mana, but triple white in there. But boy, this thing's a mythic rare elemental knight, and it is a 4/6 with vigilance. So already pretty strong. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller gets a 3/3 colorless Gollum artifact creature token. And when Cavalier of Dawn dies, return target artifact or enchantment card from your graveyard to your hand. These all seem kind of like disparate abilities, but they're all kind of good.
Oh, these cards are all powerful. They're rate monsters. Rate is a term you use kind of in design to describe how efficient / powerful a card is. Like
the rate of return on your mana is what it's short for.
Yeah. So yes, but I don't really get the through line here. This thing is not very resonant in terms of design for me. In terms of gameplay, though, very good. Cavalier of Dawn is just a flat A.
Yep.
Because 5 mana, 4/6 vigilance. Okay, that's fine. At triple white, you're not like juiced about that. But the fact that it gets to cast Beast Within essentially on a non-land permanent, so even as a white card, it can kill a creature, and they get they get a Golem, but this is kind of trumping that Golem. And then it's got this weird text where it probably won't come up all that often, but if you have a Cavalier of Dawn, maybe you're a little more likely to include a random artifact creature or something in your deck.
Also, it's of note here that it's just destroy target, like up to one target. Like you don't have to destroy their stuff. You can destroy yours and upgrade to a Golem.
Yeah, and you don't have to do anything if there's no good targets.
Right. If there's nothing, you can just, sit on your 4/6. Yeah. This looks like an A to me just because it just sort of adds up enough stuff that like it's hard to imagine dying the turn after you cast it. It gives you enough stats so that even the 3/3 on the other side of the battlefield can't get through it. So,
And it's not that hard to, to conceive of just having 2-ish random artifact creatures in your deck.
Yeah.
So just so you get a little value. Or if you have a passivism and they have a way to destroy it, like
these things happen. Get it back. Yeah. So Cavalier of Dawn gets an A. The mana cost is tough, but not prohibitive. It's just triple white's a little rough. Next is Hanged Executioner. Oh boy. 2 and a white for a 1/1 spirit at rare. It's got flying. And when Hanged Executioner enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So we effectively get 2 of them. And then I can pay 3 and a white and exile it to exile target creature. Wow.
I mean, this is a great card because really 2 and a white for 2 1/1 flyers is already just a good deal.
Yeah.
1/1 flyers, end up doing quite a bit, especially in the set where you have ways to pump them or, cards that care about having flyers in play. And the fact that you can then later, sack this or exile this to kill a creature is pretty good too. Though note that it's not exile from your graveyard. That this is the kind of card that looks like that is what it would be.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's not.
It's from play. So I think Hanged Executioner is quite strong. It's not an A, but I would give it a B+. I think you're going to be really happy with this card because you get 2 dorks out of it. If you have ways to get this back, from your graveyard, you can keep playing it, getting more dorks, and then at some point you just cash it in to kill one of the creatures.
Yeah, and you could just do it anytime you want, right? Like the key here is, do you get to untap with it? But this is where the beauty of this card really shines, right? If you play Hanged Executioner, you get your 2 1/1s and you pass, and your opponent's like murder your Hanged Executioner, you're like, sweet, right? Like
nice 2 for 1,
a nice one, and you got this 1/1 flyer left over, and they had to use a removal spell on your 3-drop. That's really good.
Or you play this and they just tap out for their 5-drop, their air elemental. Then you're like, okay, untap, kill your, exile your air elemental, and again, you've got a 1/1 left over. So that's a good deal either way.
Very good. So B+ for Hanged Executioner. Yeah. Next is Leyline of Sanctity. These Leylines are back. This is 2 white for an enchantment at rare. And it says you have hexproof. And then as with all of these Leylines, it has an extra ability. We just call it the Leyline ability. If Leyline of Sanctity is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield, which is kind of a crazy bit of rules text that I've just gotten used to after having seen these around for so long. But it is insane. Like, you don't have to pay for it. The game hasn't even started yet. You just start the game with this thing on the ground. Now, this is all interesting stuff rules wise, but the bare truth of it is that Leyline of Sanctity doesn't really have a home in Limited.
No, it's enough. I think a 0-mana enchantment that says you have hexproof that you could draw at any point in the game doesn't even need to be in your opening hand would be enough.
Yeah, it's just not worth a card, right?
Yeah, there's just no decks that are so focused on targeting you in Limited that you care about this ability. So Leyline of Sanctity is going to join most of the other Leylines in getting an F. These cards are largely for Constructed, where they do a lot of good work, but not really for Limited.
So F for Leyline of Sanctity. Next is Loxodon Life Chanter. It's 5 and a white for another 4/6. This one's also rare. It's an Elephant Cleric. When it enters the battlefield, you may have your life total become the total toughness of creatures you control. Interesting. They spot you 6, but if you have anything else that can go higher, of course, you're going to want that to be higher than whatever your life total was at the time. So that's going to be kind of variable in how good that actually is. And then you can also
optional though.
It is, yeah. And then you've got 5, and then you can pay. It has activated ability. You can pay 5 and a white. Locks it on Life Chanter. Gets +X until end of turn, where X is your life total.
I like this card. It's often going to gain you a bunch of life because total toughness of creatures you control, especially this spotting you 6 to begin with, that's a lot.
That is a lot, yeah.
It's not hard to imagine like you play this and you have like a 3/3 and a 2/2 out, and that's 11. So it's like, okay, if they got you down to 5 or 6, this is a gain 5.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're higher than 11, then you're probably in okay shape too. You're not that worried. And then you can pay 6 mana to give this a huge pump. So often you're going to play this. Your life's going to be at a solid total regardless of whether you use the ability or not, right?
Yeah, say it's at 12.
Yeah. And then next turn you attack with this, and they're just going to have to chump it.
Yeah, they're just taking 16 otherwise. You just get to leave up that 6 mana. You don't even have to spend it.
Yeah, and if they block with enough things that you have to spend it, well, they lose all their stuff, and you don't really lose life Chanter. Gets a little sketchy if they have like an unsummon or something, instant speed removal, and you dumped 6 mana into this. But well, keep that in mind. And the other thing is because you probably gain life the turn prior, even then it's not the end of the world. So I don't think Life Chanter is like a bomb, but I think it is quite good. I'm leaning between B+ and A-. I think B+ though.
Yeah, I think B+ for Life Chanter. If I have 12 mana, can I do what I want to do here?
Oh yes, you can play it, trigger on the stack, pump it. So let's say you're at 10, you play this, trigger on the stack, you pump it. This becomes a 16, and then you have other creatures, and you gain. You go up to like 26 or whatever.
Yeah. I like it.
So, with that combo in mind, I've moved it up to a B+.
It's still a B+. Luxodon Life Chanter B+. Next, the biggest of the sweepers, Planar Cleansing is back. 3 white for a sorcery at rare. Destroy all non-land permanents. This is the problem solver. They got Planeswalkers, no problem. Enchantments, artifacts, of course, creatures, all gone with Planar Cleansing. This is the sweeper of sweepers.
Yeah, I don't like it. I
know. It's tough because it's so expensive for limited.
So basically, here's kind of how I feel about sweepers that kill creatures, right? At 4 mana, you're talking Day of Judgment, Wrath of God, Supreme Verdict type cards, like the 2 white, destroy all creatures sort of thing. You can often set it up nicely. And by that, I mean, you can just, if it's in your opening hand, just not play creatures the first 3 turns. Your opponents will just think you have a slow draw, and you can pick up like a nice 2 or 3 for 1. The more expensive ones don't give you that option, and that's where a lot of the power of these is. Because yes, both Planar Cleansing and Wrath of God are great when you're super behind and you top deck this on turn 10 and you just slam it, right? But what I'm looking for is the other use cases. And if Planar Cleansing is in your opening hand, it costs 6 mana. You still can't really just sit there and do nothing. So you're forced to play some cards. And at 6 mana, you're often not going to be able to hit this on turn 6 exactly. It's triple white. So there's nothing worse than trying to set up a sweeper and not being able to cast it, because then you're usually just dead. So a lot more has to go right in order to get the real good advantage out of this. And killing all non-land permanents versus just creatures is not really relevant and limited. It'll come up once in a blue moon.
Rarely.
But this isn't constructed where they often have a Planeswalker in play. So I think Planar Cleansing is a playable card in a control deck. It is a good reset button. If your opponent knows about it, they might play a little scared of it. But overall, I'm just not that into it. Also, it's super vulnerable post-board, where if they board in something like Negate or Duress, because unlike Wrath of God, a 4-mana card, they can curve out until turn 5, and then on turn 5 cast Duress, or on turn 5 leave up Negate. Whereas Wrath, you can't both curve out and do that. So overall, I think Planar Cleansing is it's like a C. It's just not a bomb. It's not a card I'm excited about. Mid-range and aggro decks. Well, aggro decks definitely don't play it. Mid-range decks sometimes won't play it because of the mana cost, or you won't pick it. And even in control decks, I'm not that excited. So
yeah, the one other downside,
powerful text, just not where I think you want to be. Yeah,
well put. I feel the same. One other downside is that your opponent gets to be the one to rebuild their board first, definitely. And when it's this much mana, it's really punishing. They could play 2 cards. You're just behind again.
So, and the flip side of that is that with the 4 mana sweepers, sometimes on turn 8 you go play your 4-drop that you've been sandbagging. Exactly. It's just not an option with this card.
Yeah, C for Planar Cleansing. Don't overrate it. It's easy to do so. Next is Sephara Sky's Blade. This is 4 white for a 7/7 legendary angel at rare with flying and lifelink. Now, this is a 7-mana card, but that is insane. You may pay white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Holy smokes. And then it says other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. Wow. Wow, that's an incredible card. I actually like this card top to bottom. The cheaper cost seems really tough to do, right? You need to have 4 flyers on the battlefield.
Yeah, you're going to need some backup from something like Hanged Executioner making 2 flyers or whatever.
Yeah, something like that's probably going to need to happen. But when I look at a 7-mana card, this is pretty close to where I want to be with it. Now, the downside to this type of card is that it's just still one flying big creature that can get bounced, killed, removed.
It's 1 murder, pacifism on someone away from you likely losing the game.
Right. And that's really tough. That is a tough price to pay. But the thing that I do like about it is that if they don't have that, you are not dying. You have a 7/7 flying lifelink. They do not have a profitable attack into that under any circumstance reasonable. So I don't know. This one to me is right in the middle, right? Because the type of cards that I tend to shy away from at the 7-mana slot like this are the ones that don't have lifelink or some way to say I'm now stable if this thing sticks. But also I tend to prefer the ones that make it so that it's hard to imagine that I could die after. Like, for example, we had that uncommon green, the giant, right? And that's a 7/7, whatever it was, reach or 5/5 reach with 2 2/2s on the ground. Like, even if they kill the giant, you still have the 2 2/2s, right? Here, if they kill Safara Sky's-Blade, you could just die. So, but also, my God, I don't know how to rate you can pay white and tap 4 and tap flyers, because is that going to happen before you get to the 7-mana slot? Well, it's possible for sure. I don't know if it's going to happen that often, but.
And even if you could cast this, sometimes alternate casting it and playing other spells in the same turn is nice too. Yeah,
that's true. And you can tap those flyers even the turn you've cast them, right?
Right. So imagine you have 3 flyers in play, and then you play a 4-mana flyer plus this on turn 6 or 7.
Yeah, that's possible as well. It clearly goes really well in like a fully dedicated flyer stack where you're almost building around it. And you
good in control deck too.
It is. Yeah, I like it. I don't love it. It's still 7 mana, and it still, is a major investment that you have to put in that could easily get messed with and you could die. But I really like that if you get to hit with it once, you're just never losing in the near term.
Yeah. The other creatures you control have flying, or with flying having indestructibles, not even that relevant.
Yeah. I don't know how much I care about that, but
like basically if they don't if they're not killing this, then your other creatures living through anything don't matter.
Right.
The biggest exception is pacifism. If they pacifism this,
okay, yeah,
your 1/1 flyers can block their 5/5s.
Yeah,
I'm going to give this card a B. It's not
right?
a bomb.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too.
I'm not taking this over murder. Like a pick one, pack one, but it's going to be just a good high end threat for most white decks, and whether you can alternate cast it or not. So I like B for Safara Sky's-Blade.
That brings us to Starfield Mystic. This is a 1 and a white for a 2/2 human cleric at rare. Enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever an enchantment you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, this guy gets a +1/+1 counter. So it's like this weird enchantment build around, but it's also a 2/2 for 2 that you don't really feel horrendous about putting in
basically just a 2/2 for 2.
Yeah,
it's not much more than that.
We call that trinket text. Yeah.
Yeah, I would give it a C. Like sometimes you're going to cast your pacifism for 1 mana, but whatever.
Yeah, but whatever. And if they kill it, you might get a counter. So Starfield Mystic gets a C. That does it for white. Now we're going to move on to blue. The first blue card is called Agent of Treachery. It's 5 blue for a 2/3. Excuse me? 7 mana 2/3. All right, well, this better be good. It's a human rogue at rare. When it enters a battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you don't control 3 or more if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, that is insane. Draw 3 cards. Rewarding theft. The second line is pretty useless.
Yeah, the second part doesn't really do much because, you can steal 1 off this. You can maybe string together some other ways, like you bounce this and re-steal. But if you've stolen 3 things with this, you're just going to win. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter anyway.
I think this card's amazing.
I feel like if you've stolen 1 thing with this, you're probably going to win. Like, this card's great.
Because note that this dying or leaving play or anything doesn't affect the permanent you stole.
Yeah, you still get it.
This is just completely stealing forever. And yeah, Agent of Treachery is fantastic with raised deads or bounce spells. Also, a 7 mana 2/3 that takes their best permanent. You're going to have a dominating board position after that under most circumstances.
Agreed. Yeah. Also, one thing I like about it is that sometimes you're under assault and you need to steal a tapped creature, right? Like a creature that attacked you in the air or something the turn prior. And you can steal that and still have a blocker here just so that you get a chance to untap with the thing that you stole. This Agent of Treachery seems great.
How does it do in the head-to-head against the 7-drop white creature, Sephara?
Oh, I like this way better. way
Sephara, you play Agent of Treachery.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I thought you just meant comparing them. Yeah, no. If we put him in the arena, it does not end well for Sephara Sky's Blade. Yeah.
Agent of Treachery is an A. Like, look, it's a 7-mana card, but it's one of the metrics that a very simple metric that we use is how likely you are to like die or have a board stable when you cast this card, and the answer is you almost always stabilize or be ahead after you cast this. Like, sure. If they have 4 2/2 flyers in play, sometimes they'll still just die. But it's so hard to imagine that a 2/3 plus their best creature going over to your side, tapped or not, is not giving you the best chance to win. Also, it's target permanent. You could take their Planeswalker. They play a Chandra, and you could just take it.
That's insane. This card's great.
So, Agent of Treachery is an A, and despite the words of warning we have with 7-mana cards, this is what you want for 7 mana. Like, this is worth it. So, I would slam this if I opened it.
Easy. Agent of Treachery, A. Next is Atemsis All-Seeing. This is 3 blue for a 4/5 legendary Sphinx at rare with flying. So 6 mana, 4/5 flyer, but triple blue in there. Activated ability. Pay 2 and a blue and tap it to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So you're up a card and you're filtering. Wow. And then whenever Atemsis All-Seeing deals damage to an opponent, you may reveal your hand. If cards with at least 6 different converted mana costs are revealed this way, that player loses the game.
So that part basically irrelevant.
6 different. Yeah, that's a lot. This is interesting because this actually highlights a design philosophy that they seem to have gone away from largely, which is making sort of big threatening creatures that have tap to activate abilities. They did this way back in the day.
What my favorite example is?
What's that?
It's Riven Turnbull. The reason I bring this up is because it used to be draftable on Magic Online with the old Masters Edition sets. 5 blue-black for a 5/7. Huge.
Yeah.
Taps for a blue mana.
It's a ramp guy? Okay, yeah. That's ridiculous.
And look, Atemsis the All-Seeing isn't quite as ridiculous because this is a really powerful ability.
Yes.
What you're going to face when you play this card is, assuming Atemsis survives, you're going to sit there and you're going to look, okay, well, do I want to attack them for 4 or do I want to pay 3 to very close to drawing 2 cards? Because even though you have to discard a card, the fact that you're getting rid of your worst card for a random card is still worth like half a card-ish,
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the answer to that question, but
yeah, we're going to be using this ability most of the time. So,
yeah, and I mean, I think that it also makes sense, right? Like, unless you're winning the game in 2 turns or something, you can just sit there with Atemsis, say go. You have a 4 or 5 flyer. That's hard to attack into, and then on end step or even after blocks, if they do try to kill it, you can just get your value.
Well, imagine
you're
this:
going to win that game.
They're at 20. You can kill them in 5 turns by attacking, or you can win the game in 2 turns by activating this twice.
Yeah, seriously. You can just basically lock up the game with a flood of card advantage.
I think the Atemsis the All-Seeing is good. It's it's similar to Sephara, where it's a big flyer that if they kill or bounce it, you're in a little bit of trouble. But 6 and 7 are really far apart. One thing that we don't talk about too much, but it's relevant, is the difference between 2 and 3 mana is smaller than 3 and 4, and smaller than 4 and 5, and much smaller than 5 and 6 and 6 and 7. Each one incrementally becomes a bigger difference in terms of when you can expect to hit that land drop.
Yeah, so, it's over 2. It's like 2 1/4 turns, 1 3/4 turns difference between 6 and 7.
Yeah, once you get like the odds of you hitting your 6th land drop and the odds of you hitting your 7th land drop on time, like it gets wider and wider because of everything that needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's like approaching 2 turns by the time you get to 6 and 7. It's not turn 7. It's turn 9, right. Turn 10. It's really
like when you're looking at a 3-drop versus a 4-drop. That's a 1-turn difference. That's just about. Mm-hmm. The difference between a 6 and a 7 is a 2-turn difference.
Yeah.
And so that makes this quite a bit cheaper. Also, pacifism is very ineffective on this.
Yeah.
So
I like Atemsis All-Seeing a lot. I mean, I'm waffling a little bit between B+ and A-.
Exactly where I am too. Yeah. I think I'd give it an A-. I think
Me too. It's good enough.
Look, if it survives for even a turn or 2, you're going to be very far ahead. So that's enough for me.
Yeah,
Ooh, I
same.
love the next one too.
So this is Cavalier of Gales. What does Cavalier of Gales do?
It's 2 blue, so in the Cavalier cycle. And this one, actually, the abilities have a little bit more connection. It's so 2 blue for a 5/5 flying. So already pretty strong out the gates. 5 mana 5/5 flyer. That's probably a B+ on its face.
Yes.
And then when it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards and then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library. So it casts Brainstorm.
Okay.
Which, it's funny because Brainstorm is one of the cards that has the biggest delta between constructed and limited application. Because the power of Brainstorm is you draw 3 cards, put your 2 worst cards back, and then crack a fetch to shuffle. Not going to happen too often in this format unless you get an Evolving Wilds.
Right. But you are up a card.
You're up a card.
Yeah.
Right. If you had 2 cards in your hand, now you've got 3. So 2 blue, 5/5 flying, draw a card. Okay, that's great. And then when it dies, you get to shuffle this back into your deck and then scry 2. So not only do you get odds of rebuying, you also get to scry to make that even higher. So Cavalier of Gales is an A. It's just straight up an A. It's a great card. It's a card I'd be thrilled to open. It's always going to perform well.
Yeah. And is this a nod to the fact that it might die right away? Is that what the Scry 2 is?
Oh, that's really funny. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. You play this, you put your 2 worst cards back, and then they have to kill it, and then you're just like, all right, shuffle my 2 worst cards away, then scry 2.
Yeah, bottom. So, yeah.
Amazing, yeah. So,
I love it.
Easy A on Cavalier of Gales, which brings us to Drawn from Dreams.
What does this do?
It's a rare 2 blue sorcery. Look at the top 7 cards of your library, put 2 in your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it casts Dig Through Time.
Dig Through Time, right. So, but it's 4 mana always and sorcery speed.
Yeah, so I like this card. I think it's quite strong because paying 4 mana to get the best 2 out of 7 is, I think, a decent amount better than 4 mana draw 3. And you would be really happy with a 4 mana draw 3.
I would, yeah. So how about this? Can you compare this to, 2 black, search your library for a card, put it in your hand?
Yeah,
because that's a card we don't like, but this gets you 2 cards, which is a critical difference.
Being up a card is the real big difference here. This is quite a bit better than Diabolic Tutor, quite a bit better than Tamiyo's Epiphany of the Scry 4 draw 2. And I think the biggest comparison is Concentrate, 2 blue, draw 3, or Harmonize, which you would always be happy to play. So I don't think Drawn from Dreams is a bomb, but it finds your good cards and puts you up on cards. It does both those things at once, which I think makes it a solid B+. This is a good card draw spell. You don't want to cast it on turn 4. What you want to do with this is go play some creatures, kill their thing, and then on turn 6 or 7, play this to restock, find another murder, find a good finisher. If you could ever buy this back with a Scholar of Ages, you're just going to run away with the game in no time at all.
Yeah, you're going to get 2
in a lot of time, but you'll win.
Yeah, which is ideal, by the way.
Yes.
Okay, I'll say B for Drawn to Dreams for me. It seems powerful, but let's not underestimate the fact that you're spending 4 mana sorcery speed and nothing's happening to the board. That is a cost. Good. You said B+ is where you're at on Drawn.
Yeah, I like B+ on Drawn from Dreams.
Okay, I'll be your B+. Next is Dungeon Geists. This is a reprint, and it's a really good one. It's 2 blue for a 3/3 flying spirit, and which is already good. And then when it enters the battlefield, you tap target creature an opponent controls, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Dungeon Geists. This card's really, really good. It basically demands a removal spell or it dominates the board because it gives you a 3/3 flyer and takes out your opponent's best threat for as long as it's around. And that is just a huge swing. It is a really, really big swing in your direction. Also, even if it does die, you get to tap down one of your opponent's creatures just for the moment. And sometimes that can matter as well. So you're kind of getting something no matter what. But the fact that it's a viable threat as a 3/3 flyer in the air and locking down either a blocker or your opponent's best threat makes it fantastic. Really, really strong. It's just a must kill. And anytime you have a 4 mana must kill, I think that bumps its grade up pretty significantly.
Yeah, I have Dungeon Geist at a flat A, and I've already done my written blue reviews at this point, and I remember from last time this came up too. People tend to underrate this card a little bit, which is weird because it doesn't look like a bomb, but it really is.
It really is. Yeah.
Part of it is just how cheap it is. So if they don't answer it, you almost always win. If they do answer it, you spent 4 mana. They probably spent a comparable amount, and you even got to tap a creature for a turn. And it's perfect with raised deads. It's good if you have if you can play this turn 5 with unsummon in your hand, they try to kill it, you unsummon it.
Yeah.
It's just so cheap. It's good. It's good ahead, good one behind, good at parity. It's good all the time. So I think Dungeon Geist just deserves an A.
By the way, our grades for the blue cards so far have been A, B, B plus, A.
Yeah, and this is not us saying, oh, we love blue cards, we just want to play control. These cards are all amazing.
These are fantastic cards. Yeah, really legit. And
we're not. We've gotten through most of the good ones. We're not done yet. There's still another couple good blue cards. Well, one really good blue card left, but we haven't hit the ley line yet. That's the whammy for each color.
Yeah, it is.
But I mean, these blue cards are just really good. And look at a common theme: Agent of Treachery, Cavalier of Gales, Dungeon Geists, all creatures with powerful come into play abilities.
Yes, that, which is something that we love. That this is what gets you into the.
Part of the reason is you just get a ton of value from them, kind of regardless of what happens. So
exactly,
Dungeon Geist is an A, and I don't think it's particularly close.
A for Dungeon Geist. Next is Flood of Tears. This is 4 blue for a sorcery at rare. Return all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. If you return 4 or more non-token permanents you control this way, you may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. Wow.
Yeah, so I don't think I like this card all that much, even though I think it has potential. Basically, if it was just 6 mana bounce everything, or all non-land, it's not upheaval,
right?
It would be quite bad. Because part of the strength of bounce spells is that you get to bounce their stuff and then attack them. This would just bounce everything, and they'd be the first person back on the board.
Yeah, and you're down the card and all the tempo and all that, yeah.
Right. In order for this to be better than that, you have to have bounced 4 of your permanents and have something pretty good to put into play. And that's not even necessarily going to be better than whatever they cast on their turn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying this card.
Yeah, I'm not either. I want to, but I don't. I really like that they tried to mitigate the downside, though, by saying, look, cool. if you blew up the whole world with this thing, you get to be ahead again. And I like that, and there are some, of course, disgusting scenarios that you can concoct with this. But, when we look at these cards, we don't just think about the best possible option. We think about all of the possible options. And I think on average, Flood of Tears is not going to perform for you.
Yeah, I would give Flood of Tears a D. I think
it's just like a D, right?
The best matchup I could imagine for this is when they have a bunch of tokens. So you're just killing a bunch of their creatures. But even then, I'm kind of skeptical. So
yeah,
D for Flood of Tears, which brings us to the much anticipated Leyline of Anticipation.
Womp.
It's 2 blue enchantment. If it's in your opening hand, starts in play. You may cast spells as though they had flash. This one's at least powerful because you can play your creatures at instant speed now, which means it makes attacking kind of dicey for your opponent. But again, I don't even know if I'd play this if it costs 0.
No
you're
way.
Not a card. So yeah, this is Leyline of Anticipation is an F.
It is an F, and I guarantee you'll see people playing this at the pre-release and stuff. Don't be one of those people. It's not worth a card. It's just not. Next is Masterful Replication. This is 5 and a blue for an instant at rare. Choose one. Create 2 3/3 colorless artifact creature, Gollum artifact creature tokens. Wow, 2 3/3s at instant speed. Okay. Or choose target artifact you control. Each other artifact you control becomes a copy of that artifact until end of turn. So we have 2 very different abilities here, right? But the key is the first
not really.
one.
We just have one because the second one, I think,
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You're just never going to cast. So it's a tradition. Every set, I beef a card. In this one in particular, for the written reviews, I didn't notice it was an instant, which does make it quite a bit better. But still, so here's a common, as we talked about. The difference between 6 and 7 mana, the difference between 5 and 6 is pretty big too.
It is. That's where the gap starts to widen.
I think at 6 mana making 2 3/3s, I just don't love that rate. It's okay, but it's not great. This is probably
pretty good.
It's probably a C plus. I don't think it's much better than that.
I have it at C plus B minus. I mean, that's instant speed. You're ambushing stuff, right?
Yeah, this is better than I thought in the written reviews for sure. Mm-hmm. But I still don't like it that much. And at 6 mana, I'd also rather just get a 6/6 than 2 3/3s.
Agreed. Yeah, I would too. But I view this as a more defensive card where you're passing a turn with your 6 mana. They attack you. You get to maybe eat something. I don't really I'm sure you can do something silly with the second ability, but that's just a very narrow thing. Yeah, I view it as a C plus or a B minus. I don't really know which one. I guess I'll go B minus on Masterful Replication. You can ambush
I like it
and
at C
stuff.
plus, yeah.
All right. Next is
Mu Lanying Sky Dancer. So this is a Planeswalker. 1 blue, Mythic Rare Planeswalker. She starts with 2 loyalty. Her +2 ability is until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 and loses flying. So
love that.
You play her, tick her up to 4, and make it so one of their creatures isn't a very effective attacker. That does count as defense in my book.
Especially on a 3-mana Planeswalker.
Yeah, for they played a 2-drop. Like if they played a 2-drop, you played a 2-drop, then you play Moo and -2 theirs, they're just not even close to attacking.
Right.
Which leads to her next ability, which is -3, make a 4/4 blue elemental bird with flying.
Dang.
That's huge. So in that previous scenario, you're running away with the game because you're go play this, nuke your creature, next turn make a 4/4, which can then defend Moo.
And Moo is still at 1? Yeah, that's insane.
Yep. And then -8, you get an emblem with islands you control have tap, draw a card. So
what the hell? This is awesome.
Yeah, that's a really good late game ability. Also, though, I don't think you're going to emblem very much because anytime I've got loyalty, I'm cranking out a 4/4.
Yeah, you're making a bird. Yeah.
I mean, I think a common play pattern with Moo is going to be play +2, next turn -3, next turn +2, next turn kill her off to -3. You've gotten 2 elementals out of the deal, and you can just end the game with those.
Mm-hmm.
Mulan
she's an A.
Gets an A as well. She's just awesome. Like
easy A. Wow, what an insanely powerful 3-mana plane. Like 3 mana for that?
I want to open a blue card. In my rare slot. Like of the let's see. So each one has 10. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 A's. You're at 50% to open an A. If you know that your rare mythic slot has a blue card in it. I guess a little less than that because there's some mythics. Whatever. 5 of the 10 are awesome.
Yeah.
That brings us to Tail's End, which is 1 in a blue. It's an instant at rare. Counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or legendary spell, which this looks like a constructed card for me. It's not a card I would main deck. I could see siding it in if they have a couple legendary cards, like they have Mu Yan Ling and, a Tempest the All-Seeing or something like that. Mm-hmm. Because countering an activated or triggered ability every now and then will do something.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that you need to make sure you do is keep yourself to high standards here. Finding simply a target for Tail's End is not the bar, right? You need to be getting a card or something worth quite a bit out of it. So yeah, I agree. I would give it like a sideboard D. Like it's extremely narrow the times when I would actually bring this in.
So not a card you should prioritize.
Yeah.
And that brings us to black. We've got. Well, kicking things off nicely, Cavalier of Night. It's 2 black, just like all the other Cavaliers. It's a mythic rare elemental knight. It's a 4/5 lifelink. So 5 mana, 4/5 lifelink.
That is
pretty
great.
Good. This is solid.
Love that.
When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature an opponent controls. So it casts Bone Splinters.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you get to trade in your worst creature for their best one. Seems pretty good. And then when it dies, return target creature with a converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it casts Unearth. It has two 1-mana spells attached. And that's enough for me. I mean, this card is great. It's a little behind the blue Cavalier and probably about par with the white one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
We're splitting hairs here. I think they're all A's.
It's an easy A. Yeah, just that is just a bomb of... I anticipate complaints.
Yes. I mean, the fact that it's a 4/5 lifelink that lets you cash in your worst creature for their best means it's really hard to not be, at the very least, on parity, but probably ahead on board. And then when it dies, you get whatever you sacrifice back a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's no way you're not ahead with a 4/5 lifelink against their second best creature. So, yeah. A for Cavalier of Night. These Cavaliers are clearly pushed. They're like mini Titans.
Yes.
What about Dread Presence?
This is a great one. It's 3 in a black for a 3/3 rare. It's a nightmare. It really is a nightmare, too. It's whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control, choose one. Draw a card and lose a life. Okay, all your swamps now replace themselves. Or Dread Presence deals 2 damage to any target and you gain 2 life.
What in the world?
This card's unbelievable.
That's crazy.
What you want to do most of the time is, on turn 5, play this, play a swamp, kill their 2/2, gain 2.
Yes.
And at that point, you're ahead no matter what happens. And if it survives, each of your swamps either finds more swamps by drawing cards or other action, or just kills off their stuff. Like the fact that it can nug creatures is just Yeah, this
That is insane. You can even hit planeswalkers and players with it. And then if you're at parity or ahead or whatever, you can just start drawing cards and make sure you stay that way. That's crazy.
Try pretty hard to have 10 or 11 swamps or more in my deck if I had this card. Like, you don't need to be mono black, but you want to have a lot of swamps.
It's weird to me that the mana cost is 3 and a black. Like, if you read the rest of the card and said cost this, I would cost it at like black, black, black 1 or black, 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 black or something like super, swamp intensive.
It's actually a kind of funny trick. Corrupt is another card like this. Tendrils of Night is another card like this.
It's like it effectively is at least black, black too.
Right. It's because these cards push you to have a bunch of swamps, you don't need to put it in the cost.
I see. They just don't need to. That's awesome. Yeah. Dread Presence gets an A for me.
Same.
Yeah, that's great. What about Embodiment of Agonies?
This is 1 black, black for a demon. It's a rare. It's a 0/0 flying death touch, but it enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each different mana cost among non-land cards in your graveyard. For example, 2 and a black and 1 black black are different mana costs. So it's not looking at converted, it's looking at literally just the whole mana cost. So the fact that it has death touch means it's never going to be bad as long as you have at least one thing in your graveyard, right? Because 3 mana 1/1 flying death touch is a card you would just play.
So we just need literally anything in the yard.
Yeah. Literally one card in the yard and this becomes playable. It's not hard to imagine this being a 3/3 or 4/4 pretty easily. Like, not on turn 3, but on like turn 6 or 7. Another thing that's underrated is a 3 mana card is like, the fact that this costs 3 is efficient even on turn 8 because it lets you play this plus another card. So it's not that it's weird that your 3-drop you can't play till later. Totally fine. I don't think Embodiment of Agonies is like out of control good, but it is good.
No, it's good though. It is good. Yeah, it feels like a B minus range to me.
Oh, I would give it a B plus. I think the fact that this is going to be a 3 mana 3/3 or 4/4 flying some of the time is very strong. Imagine you trade off 2 drops, you play a removal spell and something else, and then you play another creature in your trade. This is a 3/3 flying death touch.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good. Yeah, so, and then the floor is a 1/1 flying. I mean, not the floor. The floor is that you can't cast it.
It's really hard to have no card in your graveyard. So the fact that it's a 1/1 death touch flyer means trades for their 4/4 flyer or whatever.
Yeah, it's also easy to get a card in your graveyard if you want. So yeah I like Embodiment of Agonies. I'll go B. You're going to go B plus on it. Card seems great. And balanced too, right? This isn't the type of card that you're just like, this is ridiculous. Next is Knight of the Ebon Legion. This is black for a 1/2 Vampire Knight at rare. It has activated ability 2 and a black, and it gets +3/+3 and gains death touch until end of turn. Okay. At the beginning of your end step, if a player lost 4 or more life this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Wow. Okay. So this is a playable 1-drop. My goodness sakes.
Oh, Knight of the Ebon Legion is great. The threat of activation is very real with this card. If you attack on turn 3 into their like 2/2 or their 3/3, they're just not going to block.
Right.
And unlike other similar cards, sometimes it's going to be worth just pumping it so they take 4 and then this gets a +1/+1 counter.
I mean, this, and of course the 4 being the exact number that it hits for. So
so weird how that lines up. Also, it having death touch means double blocks are pretty bad for them. And, there's no limit on how many times you could pump this.
Yeah.
At 6 mana, this is a 7/8.
Huh. That is a lot going into a 1-drop. I like it.
Oh, the Knight of the Ebon Legion is fantastic. I would give Knight of the Ebon Legion a B+. I think it's just a card that you're going to be very happy with.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a B. I think this is a first pickable card, which is crazy for a 1-drop.
Sure. The rares in this set have seemed quite good.
Definitely. Legion's End is next. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery at rare. Exile target creature an opponent controls with converted mana cost 2 or less, and all other creatures that player controls with the same name as that creature. Then that player reveals their hand and exiles all cards with that name from their hand and graveyard. This is sorcery speed, 2 mana, kill something small, cheap. And then it gives you this random bonus of if they happen to have a bunch of them. But this is limited. That's unlikely to happen.
Yeah, it's good against tokens.
You can take out a bunch of tokens. Yeah, seems fine.
This is a C. I mean, most decks are going to have like 3 to 5 cards that you can target with this between any token makers plus any just 1 and 2 drops. You're not going to get much out of the additional text, and you can often side this out. You play against a control deck that has 2 drops. This is just not going to be good. So I think Legion's End is kind of mediocre, but it's a removal spell if you need it. So
I mean, how do we grade removal spells that only hit cheap creatures but also don't cost that much? It's fine, right?
I think it's a C. I think it's a little bit narrower than I would like, but it's because the 3 mana removal spell that hits a 3 or less has a much wider range.
Yeah, 2 and 3 is a big gap for sure.
So I think Legion's End gets a C, but I'm not.
I'll go C plus on Legion's End just for its ability to knock out army tokens of a bunch of tokens. Yeah. Leyline of the Void is next, as you said. No whammies, stop. It's 2 black for an enchantment at rare. This one says if a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And then, of course, it has the Leyline clause.
Another F.
Yeah. Even if your opponent's doing some amount of graveyard stuff, it's hard to imagine that this is worth, maybe it's a sideboard D or something. But
nope, it's an F.
F. Okay. What about Rotting Regisaur? Reggie, no, you look a little worse for the rare. It's 200.
Yeah, this one's good.
Wait. Vanilla Test just dropped off the side of the desk. It's 2 and a black for a 7/6.
I'm in.
It is a zombie dinosaur at rare, but it says at the beginning of your upkeep, oh, this could be bad. Well, discard a card.
Yeah, this card's good.
It's actually not that bad. Yeah.
So the biggest drawback with this is if you play this, next turn you discard, you hit them for 7. Next turn you discard, they chump. Next turn you discard, and then they kill it. And at the end of the day, you've done 7 and kill a chump blocker, but you're down to a card or 2, depending on what they use. Of course, passivism on this is really brutal.
Extremely brutal.
The upside is often they'll just die to this. You play this on turn 3 against a red-green deck, you'll be down a couple cards and they'll be dead.
Yep.
Also, if you have no cards in your hand, there's no drawback. So after a couple turns, this might actually not even have a drawback.
Which is interesting. You just play the card from your hand and then
imagine you play this on turn 5 after you've curved out and you play something else that turn 2. Next turn you maybe discard a card, but then after that you're just hellbent. Rotting Register seems like an A- to me. It's just a great card.
It seems really amazing. Also, there's the use case of just you top deck it late game and go, sweet, play it.
Yeah, it's a 7/6.
It matters. Yeah, you're not really leveraging the 3 mana part,
I can just
but
imagine
still
playing against this and they play it on turn 3 and you just know you're going to lose.
Yeah, totally. Huh. I like it. I really like it. I'm going to go B plus on Rotting Regisaur. The flavor text it says now that's a zombie. And it is a zombie, by the way, if that matters. So B plus A minus. You said A minus for Rotting Regisaur?
Yeah, I like A minus. I just think it's going to run away with some games. Well, zombies don't run traditionally very well, but it's gonna shamble away with some games.
Yeah. Oh, we should mention too that if you're playing against it, make sure that you use your instant speed removal at the right time, mainly letting them go to their upkeep so that their discard trigger goes on the stack.
If they have no cards in hand, you can also unsummon it in response to the trigger, and it'll go away. And
they have to discard it.
Yes.
Great point. Yeah, that's really good trick too. So there you go. Rotting Regisaur B plus A minus. Next is Scheming Symmetry. Black mana for a sorcery. It's rare. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. No.
This is an F.
No.
I wouldn't play, black, search your library for a card, put it on top in limited. That's just not a good card. You're down a card, and you have to wait a turn. This gives your opponent that ability for free, and they get first crack at it? No. Scheming Symmetry is an F. And, I don't even love it in Two-Headed Giant where you can choose you and your teammate, but I think it's probably worth trying there. But in normal limited, just an F. Do not be scheming here.
Yeah, no scheming here. Next is Sauron, Imperious Bloodlord. Wow, another 3 mana walker. It's 2 and a black for a 4 loyalty Sauron at Mythic. +1. Target creature you control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. If it's a vampire, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Another +1. You may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sauron, Imperious Bloodlord deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And then the -3, and remembering that Sauron starts at 4, so you can do this right away, you may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield.
Basically, Sauron is a tribal planeswalker where if you have no vampires, the latter 2 abilities do stone nothing, and the first ability is not that great. 3 mana. 3 mana for a 4 loyalty planeswalker that goes to 5, gives a creature Death Touch and Lifelink, which until end of your turn, so you have to attack with it to get the value, in which case you're not blocking to protect Sauron, and do nothing else. So Sorin is a build around. Like, there's no way around it. You can't just put this in a random black deck and expect good results. And I don't think Sorin's all that great of a build around because there's 2 vampires at common, the 3 mana 3/2 and the 2 mana 2/2 lifelink on your turn. Both those are fine. But, and there's like an uncommon vampire. I don't know how many total vampires there are, but I know there's not enough that you're reliably going to get more than like 1 or 2.
Yeah, and that really does make it seem like Sorin was set up more for constructed. Right?
Sorin seems unbelievably good in constructed, by the way. Basically the threshold where I would like to play Sorin in my deck and happy about it is probably like 3 vampires. Mm-hmm. And at like 5, Sorin is probably very good. Is likely quite good.
Okay, so here's what we've got for vampires. You mentioned the Barony Vampire and the Bloodthirsty Aerialist. Or no, excuse me, and the Blood Burglar. Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 uncommon vampires.
Yeah, and then at common, I think there's only 1 uncommon. There's Bloodthirsty Aerialist.
Isn't there the 1/1 Death Touch Lifelink? Is that not a vampire?
Not a vampire. And then there's Epicure of Blood at common as well, the 5 mana 4/4.
Oh, right. Oh, that one you can put into play with Sorin.
You can. I mean, is that exciting? I guess.
Yeah, 3 mana play Sorin minus it, put into play.
Yeah, it seems fine. And then the Knight of the Ebon Legion, the rare that we just mentioned that can pump up, it happens to be one as well, but that's a rare, so who cares? So yeah, it's tough. That seems like I want to give Sorin like a mediocre build around grade just because it seems so difficult to actually make it work.
Yeah, I think that Sorin. No, the 1/1 Death Touch Lifelink is a vampire.
What?
Vampire of the Dire Moon.
Oh, you're right. Why isn't that showing up the right way? Oh, I screwed up. Hold on. I have it sorted by the wrong thing. You're right. Sorry. There's 2 of those. And
I was having a really hard time believing that a Death Touch Lifelinker wasn't a vampire, but...
Yeah. No. It totally is. And then the rest of them are fate cards. So there's 2 uncommons, 3 commons.
Critically, 2 good uncommons, 1 good common, 2 mediocre commons.
Yes, exactly. Huh.
Yeah, that's enough that I think it's not that hard to get 3 or 4 vampires, especially since Barony Vampire becomes a real playable under this circumstance.
It's funny
and no one else
the ones that are bad.
Vampire.
Right. It's funny because the ones that are bad are actually the most important because you can get them.
Yeah.
Like Barony Vampire. So what do we build around B or something?
I think someone gets a build around B. You're looking for 3+ vampires, ideally more.
So the real question is, though, if you were playing black, would you not put Sorin Imperious Bloodlord in your deck if you had let's just say you had 1?
I would some not, random vampire. I just don't think it's going to be effective enough.
Because that's the line, right?
Yeah.
Next is Vilis, Broker of Blood, 5 black, 8 mana triple black. All right, this better be good. Legendary creature demon at rare, 8/8 flying. I'm not gonna lie that that's a fine start, but I'm gonna need way more than that for my 8 drop. Let's see what it has. It says you can pay black and pay 2 life to give target creature -1/-1 until end of turn. And whenever you lose life, draw that many cards. Wow. I'm not that impressed here, Luis. I'm not gonna lie.
Neither am I. So I think the difference is that Vilis is 8 instead of 7, which is another couple turns, right? And it doesn't have lifelink, doesn't have a way to protect you, so there's often a chance that they can just attack into you and you'll just die.
You will just die, exactly. Yeah, and then also I don't like that the ability requires a very, very steep loss of life. Yes, you are drawing 2 cards from this while shrinking down an opposing creature. So if you're sitting at 15, it's game over. You're going to draw 4 cards, kill a thing, win the game pretty easily. Make combat difficult for your opponent with Vilis. But if you're low, right, which often happens when you're sitting there staring at a card in your hand for the duration of the game or since you've drawn it, it means that card wasn't defending you or helping you keep your life total up. It was sitting in your hand. So when you finally slam this, if you're at 4 life, you can't even activate it reliably, right? I think I'm kind of I'm not off it. I mean, this is still a powerful card, but it's like the 8 mana cost plus the fact that even though it is an 8/8 flyer, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is a card that if it sticks on the battlefield is going to basically block anything on the other side. But my goodness sakes, 8 mana. That is a really steep price to pay. I generally don't want to have an 8-mana card in my deck at all.
No, and how much life are you going to have to play with once you've gotten this in play, right?
Right. I'm not loving Velus, Broker of Blood here. This is not the kind of not the kind of 8-drop that I want to have in my deck. I would give him a D. And the D is heavily predicated on the fact that it costs 8. Putting an 8-drop in your deck is a real liability. Like if you're not ramping towards this or whatever, you're talking turn 14, turn 15, like before you can reliably cast Velus. You're only playing 17 lands in most of your decks. This is almost half.
Maybe you're playing 18 because you have Velus.
Maybe, right? But even if you do, again, you're talking about turn, like you have to get through, almost half your library before you can have, on average, have enough lands to cast Velus. And if that's the case, you start with 7, it's all the rest, right? It's a lot of turns that have to go by before you can cast it. And then as you pointed out, there's a decent chance that you cast it and then die. Like you cast Velus and then they go, cool, attack you with everything, or they bounce it once and you're just dead. I'm going to go D on Velus. It's powerful, but it's just too expensive for my taste.
I would say Velus is like standalone grade is like a D or an F, but I kind of view this as a build around where if you think you're going to be looking to cast Velus, then you have to build your deck to be super controlling and have some mana ramp options. At which point, it's got some potential there, but it's still not that much. So also note that in sealed, I'm quite a bit higher on this card.
Yes, definitely agree with you there.
So,
okay, that moves us to red, and once again, we've got the Cavalier to kick things off. This one is called, you guessed it, Cavalier of Flame. 2 red for a 6/5. So this is the biggest of the bunch so far. Again, mythic rare. You can pay 1 and a red to give creatures you control +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. When it enters the battlefield, discard any number of cards, then draw that many cards. And when it dies, it deals X damage to each opponent and each planeswalker they control, where X a number of land cards in your graveyard. This has to be the worst of them.
Yeah, the idea is you play this, discard 2 lands, and draw 2 cards, and then when they kill it, it does 2 to something. But Cavalier of Flame is still good. It's a 5-mana 6/5 with 2 somewhat relevant abilities, plus the random fire breathing ability, which actually kind of makes your whole team go off. Also on 7 mana, this has haste. So, yeah, I would give Cavalier of Flame probably an A-. It's worse than the other ones. It's still very good, though.
Yeah, that's true. It is still really good. It's still doing a lot of things, even though like the last ability is like, how am I getting lands in my yard? That just seems weird. Sure, A- for Cavalier of Flame. Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. We liked the uncommon Chandra a lot. Let's see how this one holds up. It's 1 red for a 4 loyalty legendary Chandra. This one's just rare, not even mythic. And again, 3 mana planeswalkers are really something else. This one actually is interesting design. It has 2 0 abilities. So the first one is put a loyalty counter on each red planeswalker you control. So all it is just +1. And realistically, that's it. And then the other one is create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. They gain haste, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. So you get 2 1/1s just for the turn. And then -2, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. Meh.
Yeah, I'm more.
This is all whatever.
I'm more excited for Chandra in Constructed. If you have a lot of I guess you do have to pay the mana cost on the spell. That really does limit this.
Yeah, it doesn't say you may cast it without paying its mana
it's
cost.
not like you can shock something and then play this on 3 and immediately shock something else.
Yeah,
and then the spirits don't protect, or the elementals don't protect it. I would say that Chandra looks to me like a C.
She's a C. She's fine.
If you have like 3 to 4 spells that, and they don't have to be red, by the way. So like in red-black, she works with murder. If you have 3 to 4 spells you can recast, then this Chandra can give you a little bit of value here, because she does have a decent amount of loyalty. You play her, go up to 5, next turn -2, cast murder, play a creature also potentially.
And then the next turn you can -2 again and cast something else.
Yeah, if you have something else. So
yeah.
I'm not over the moon on
C
Chandra.
for
It looks like a C to me.
Yeah, C for Chandra, Acolyte of Flame. Now, we should be specific here because this is not the only Chandra we're covering.
No.
The next card is Chandra, Awakened Inferno. And she is 4 red for a 6 loyalty mythic rare planeswalker with this spell can't be countered, which is a little something, but not much. But here's the deal. +2, each opponent gets an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, this emblem deals 1 damage to you. So again, you being the controller of the emblem, being your opponent. So every of one of their upkeeps, they take a damage. And that, by the way, puts Chandra at 8 loyalty the turn that you cast her. Okay. -3, Chandra, Awakened Inferno deals 3 damage to each non-elemental creature. So a fairly robust sweeper, not going to kill literally everything, but going to kill a lot of stuff. And still have Chandra at 3 loyalty left over. And then -X, Chandra, Awakened Inferno deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If a permanent dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it. My God. Card is great. This is kind of the classic like quadrant theory type scenario here, right? Like if you're at parity, you could just start +2ing it and being like, here, take a bunch of these emblems and they'll kill you eventually. If you're behind, you can -3 to wipe away a bunch of small creatures or -X to kill a big creature. It's just perfect.
Yeah, Chandra Awakened Inferno is amazing.
Yeah, that is just doing everything you need.
It's really hard to imagine a board situation where Chandra's not awesome, right? If you have parity or ahead, you can play Chandra and just start plussing. If you get 2 emblems on their opponent, they're almost just straight up dead. If you're really behind on board and they have small creatures, -3 could wipe a lot of them. And also, the elemental's a theme, so often you'll have elementals survive. And then if they have something big, often Chandra can just take out the big creature right away. Chandra actually looks like an A+ to me because Chandra is good in basically every situation I can imagine. The only time Chandra's not going to be enough is when you're dying to multiple 4 toughness creatures or a horde of elementals. That's just like, what cards get you out of that, right? And she's incredible when you're at parity or ahead.
Yeah, and then, it looks like Trinket Text, this spell can't be countered, but sometimes in Sealed, people do bring in their counter spells or whatever, and you'll actually sneak her by. Again, not a reason, that's not going to change her grade, but you'll take it. So A+ on Chandra, Awakened Inferno. That seems like one of the bigger bombs in the set for sure. Next is Chandra's Regulator. 1 and a red for a legendary artifact at rare. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra Planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy, and you can pay 1, tap it to discard a mountain card or a red card and draw a card. So I don't care about the first part. It's relying on you having a Chandra Planeswalker, not only in your deck, but also on the battlefield. So I'm just completely disregarding that. So the question is, would I pay 1 and a red for an artifact that let me discard a mountain card or a red card to draw a card? And I don't think I would. No. So I would just give Chandra's Regulator an F. Yeah,
if you could discard any card, I would still be dubious about this, but sometimes you're not even going to be able to loot away the cards you want. So
rummaging just isn't that strong of an ability.
We'll leave the Regulators to Warren G, and we'll move on here.
We'll mound up. Let's see, Drakuseth, Maw of Flames. 4 red for a 7/7 legendary creature dragon. At rare, it's got flying. So we have a 7 mana 7/7 flyer, and whenever it attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target and 3 damage to each above 2 other targets?
So 7 mana 7/7 flyer and attack win the game because it's doing 10 damage divided among 3 targets.
Okay. What's the deal? Does he has flames coming out of his mouth for 4 and then 3 out of each arm? Or hand or whatever that thing is. Is that the shtick here, Luis? It looks like
it. Can't even
anyway.
really tell. It just flames coming out of all the orifices.
Yes, but at any rate, easy. This is one of those similar cards to Velas, except for that we are back down to the 7 mana range, which is a lot more palatable. It's multiple turns sooner that Drakuseth gets to hit the battlefield, and it is an absolute must kill. I mean, if you get to turn this thing sideways once, the game's over. And it's any target for the 4 damage, so you could just attack for 11 and 3 damage to each
I think
of
you
up
just
to
win the
2
game if you attack
other
with
targets.
this,
if you get to attack, you're going to win the game, and that's worth it.
Yeah, they couldn't kill your 7/7. Again, we've launched into the plenty of diatribes about the difference between 6, 7, and 8. I think at the end of the day, Drakuseth is similar to Sephara. A little worse on defense because you don't gain the life, but probably a little better on offense. Like you can hit your opponent twice with Sephara, and then they kill her, and yeah, they're in a pretty big life total hole. But I could see them winning that game. I don't see Drakuseth attacking even once, and really the opponent coming back. It's going to wipe their board. So
yeah, I like that.
That leaves me at B. I mean, I think it's not the best card in the world, but it's definitely strong.
Yeah, I'd go B+ on Drakuseth. I think that ramping into this specifically is I mean, again, they have a 1-turn window to answer it. If they don't, they lose. That's pretty good for a 7-mana spell. Next is Glinthorn Buccaneer. It's 1 red for a 2/4 Minotaur Pirate at rare. It's got haste. Whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn Buccaneer deals 1 damage to each opponent. 1 and a red, discard a card, activated ability. You draw a card, activate this ability only if Glinthorn Buccaneer is attacking. That's kind of funny.
So, 3-mana 2/4 haste.
Sure, I'm in for that.
Yeah, some kind of weird abilities. I think this card is cool. It doesn't ping creatures, unfortunately, but it's still pretty strong.
Yeah, and the abilities are really weird. You can rummage while attacking and do 1 extra damage to the opponent. It's like, what is going on?
Look, if they mind rot you, they take 2. Poof, taste it.
Sure, take it. But whatever. I like this card. It's a B, right? Because it's a 3-mana 2/4 with haste, which is already good enough, and then it has some abilities that might come up. So, yeah. All right. B for Glinthorn Buccaneer. What about? Oh, I never mind. Leyline of Combustion is next. It's 2 red for an enchantment. This has the normal Leyline ability, and then its static is whenever you and or at least one permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, it does 2 damage to that player.
So this is a little bit more plausible than the other ley lines because I could imagine, this dealing like 4 to 6 damage. But even then, if I would actually need this to cost 0 before I consider it, and it very much doesn't. Because if it's not in your opening hand, how are you casting this card? Let's just give it an F. And here's the one time I could see it. If they're playing a super controlling deck with tons of removal, like we're talking 10 removal spells, this is the kind of, and you're playing an aggressive deck. This is the kind of card that could punish them. So, I would say it's like a marginal sideboard card, but an F otherwise.
Yeah, F for Leyline of Combustion. Next is Marauding Raptor. This one's caught some eyeballs. It's 1 and a red for a 2/3 dino that lets creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So
great, I'm in.
Yeah, right there. Unfortunately, there's more text, but that is fantastic to start off. It's rare, by the way. But whenever another creature enters a battlefield under your control, it does 2 damage to it. If a dinosaur is dealt damage this way, Marauding Raptors gets +2/+0 until end of turn. I believe there's only 1 or 2 dinosaurs in the set, though.
Great, I'm out.
So the question is, how bad is that?
It's horrible. Like, if you have a deck full of creatures that this kills, you can't play it. So in order for this to be good, you'd have to have basically no 2 toughness creatures in your deck, which actually is plausible. I can imagine a red-green deck where you don't have a bunch of small creatures, like everything has 3 or more toughness, and you can ramp out like bigger creatures. Because a 2-mana 2/3 that basically taps for a mana, can even attack and still add the mana is pretty good.
Yeah, or taps for the mana twice in a turn if you
play 2 creatures.
Yeah.
So I would give Marauding Raptor a build-around grade because, look, it's very dangerous. If you play this in your red-white aggro deck, you will not like the results.
No. It'll just wipe your board every turn. That is funny.
Basically, if you have 2 or less other creatures that this kills, that's probably okay, assuming you have a good high curve of creatures as well. And that's a solid build around. Like, again, I like it in like red-green, or I could see it in like a red-blue deck that's kind of creature light and wants a cheap beater that, accelerates out there like random air elemental type deals. So,
yeah, because it does a 2 damage to the new creature, right? Not to all your other creatures. So, like, if you play a 2/2 first and then the next turn play like a raptor and a 2-drop or something, that then, assuming that that the new cards have 3 toughness or more, you're okay. That is, like you said, very dangerous, particularly that it's in red, which kills most of the red creatures. As far as dinosaurs goes, I did check very quickly. It's there's 2 rare dinosaurs besides the raptor, and then there's Thrashing Broughton on it uncommon and Ripscale Predator at common. So that's not really a thing. Yeah, I like build around for Marauding Raptor. I would give it a build around B. Like, this card's fine and pretty good, but you just can't put it in your red-white deck or even in most straight up red decks. Probably green-red is where you want to be with it. Try to play some of the beefier red creatures and be heavily leaned on green because they tend to have a lot of toughness in their decks. And then this is powerful, but yeah. Do you agree with that, Marauding Raptor B build around?
Definitely. That's exactly where I'd put it.
All right. What about Repeated Reverberation?
It says 2 red. It's an instant at rare. It says whenever when you next cast an instant spell, sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability of the string, copy that spell or ability twice. You may choose new targets. So
done.
You're done?
Yeah.
You don't like casting activating Chandra 6's emblem ability 3 times?
No. It's 4 mana. I mean, it's a one shot for 4 mana. Like, even like I would like to do this with Shock, but even that costs 5. And any removal spell, like Murder or something like that, we're looking at 7 mana. I have to have both of them in my hand.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be hard to really use this card well.
Right. It's just too expensive.
Basically, you need a lot of cheap spells. And if you can do that, you have to then draw the spell, draw Reverberation, have the mana to do it. And because it copies it twice, sometimes copying 3 murders, like if they have 2 creatures in play, it's not even that good of a deal.
Right.
So
exactly.
This looks like a D to me. I could see some decks that could make use of it. It's like a build around like C or whatever.
Okay, I would just give it an F. I can't imagine.
Look, I just want to cast that Dig Through Time card with this.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great.
You just win.
You probably just deck yourself or something, but yeah. All right, so good luck with your 8 mana. Not affect the board combo. I'm going F on Repeated Reverberation, and I will keep repeating that. Thunderkin Awakener is next. It's 1 and a red for a 1/2 hasty elemental shaman at rare. And whenever it attacks, choose target elemental creature card in your graveyard with toughness less than Thunderkin Awakener's toughness, which is only 2. Return that card to the battlefield tapped and attacking, sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Card that jumped to mind was the Cloudkin, or whatever it's called, the 2/1 flying that draws a card.
The what? Oh,
the 2/1 flying. Cloudkin Seer?
Yes, yeah. Cloudkin Seer, the Reef, whatever.
Yeah, the Risen Reef, yeah.
The Risen Reef, yeah. That card's huge in Standard, by the way.
That makes me happy. I love that card.
Sweet card.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you would need, probably 3 good things to bring back before I'd want this. But even then, when you attack, this is going to die. And then you're going to draw a card off your Cloudkin Seer. And then that's going to die end of turn.
Yeah, and it has to be it all has to be set up too, where the Seer has to be dead in your, forget it. I'm off of Thunderkin Awakener. This is some build around for somebody who wants to do like a constructed deck that does some silly something, but I don't think that in limited, the reliability and the setup cost are just not they're just at odds too much. So I'm sorry, Thunderkin Awakener, but I'm not a believer. I would just give it, I don't know, I guess a build around D or something. I'm sure there's something you can do, but like you said, the problem is it's effectively a one shot and limited. It just dies anyway. So
yeah, I think that it's not a card you're gonna end up.
Yeah, I'm just gonna give it an F.
Getting able to use. I think F is probably
All right, Cavalier of Thorns. It moves us to green, and this is 2 GGG. So again, 5 mana for a 5/6. Elemental Knight with Trample? No, it has Reach. So they went for a different green ability here. When Cavalier of Thorns enters the battlefield, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. Put a land card from among them onto the battlefield and the rest in your graveyard. When Cavalier of Thorns dies, you may exile it. If you do, put another target card from your graveyard on top of your library. God, it's funny reading this card because it just misses on every single thing. It's still totally 5 mana, 5/6 reach is still well worth inclusion in any deck. But it's I wanted it to have trample. I didn't want to get a land off of the ability. I wanted to get a creature. And then I wanted to put the card in my hand, not on top of my library. It's nope. I just got slightly less than I wanted on each of these things.
Yeah, I don't think that that this is going to be quite as good as the rest of the Cavaliers because of that, but it's still a good card. Getting a land is still a card, like not a whole card at turn 5 or 6 or whatever, and getting your best card back on top of your deck is still worth something.
It's worth something, right? Can you not do it? Yeah, you may exile it. So
yeah, but you're almost always going to want to do it.
Yeah, just make your next draw step the best thing that was it. Yeah, it's probably at that point in the game going to be pretty obvious. Well, this one definitely seems not as good as some of the others that we've seen, but still really strong. I mean, it's still just, like you said, like it's just a stat monster, right? It's still just a 5/6 reach for 5, which is already quite good.
5/6 reach is great.
And then you get to ramp something out. So
imagine you just have a murder in your graveyard, or even like a shock or Chandra's Outrage. Replacing your top card with that is worth like half a card or something. Those cards are just going to be good.
Yep. And it also sets itself up, of course, by putting the other cards that weren't a land from the first ability into your yard so that you can
so you get card selection there too.
Yeah. So it's good. I mean, this card's really, really good. I don't know. Do I have to give it an A? Can I give it a B+? Can I give it an A-? I'll give it an A- for Cavalier of Thorns. It's still freaking excellent, right? It's just amazing. But look, there is a difference between this and the the ones that we've seen, right? There just is. Like, the blue one's better than this by a significant amount. So I'm going to say A- for Cavalier of Thorns. It's still first pickable, put in every deck, and really great.
I agree. A- for the Queen of Thorns.
The Queen of Thorns. Elvish Reclaimer
is
you
don't watch Game of Thrones, do you?
I do, but I haven't finished yet. Elvish Reclaimer
that's a huge spoiler.
Don't even say that.
Man,
now I'm just going to be watching the whole time. Green for a 1/2 Elvish Warrior at rare. Elvish Reclaimer gets +2/+2 as long as there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard. So what does it become? It comes to 3/4 for 1 if you get 3 land cards in your yard, which is probably impossible. Okay. And then you can pay 2, tap, and sack a land to search your library for a land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. So it feeds itself. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. What's the benefit to that, though? I guess you could fix your mana.
I think the main benefit is this eventually will thin out your deck and become a 3/4. Like it's not that I want to play this on turn 1, use it on turns 2, 3, and 4. That doesn't sound good. But it's a cheap card. You can kind of sneak it out into play whenever. And then if you ever have excess lands, you can just start using it. Becomes a 3/4 soon enough, especially if you have 1 or 2 Evolving Wilds, right? And then it can fetch out colors you're missing, can fetch out the gain 1 lands, that sort of thing. And then if the game lasts long enough, then you're not going to draw very many lands if you use this 5 times, right? You're going to have 5 fewer lands in your deck. So look, I'm not saying it's busted. Oh, it's also good in green-black with a Gorging Vulture that mills you for 4, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So this looks like a C to me. It's not like I'm saying this card's amazing, but I would probably play this like the vast majority of the time I had it if I was in green.
Yeah, especially green-black, like you said. So C for Elvish Reclaimer. It's not great, but it's a little better than it looks at first glance. Gargos Vicious Watcher is next. It's 3 green for a legendary Hydra at rare. It's got Vigilance, and it's an 8/7. Wow. So that is huge for 6 mana.
6 mana, 8/7 Vigilance is like that's a really good deal.
Really great rate. Yeah, insane. And then it says Hydra spells you cast cost 4 less to cast.
That's insane. It's so
enjoy that, EDH players. Yeah, right.
Standard. You got to be the only Hydra Crisis.
Oh, there you go. Okay, that is kind of cool.
There's also one more rare Hydra. Thank you very much. But yes, no, that part is
there is in this set. There is, isn't there? That's right.
Yes. But that's not a big deal. It's mostly just 6 mana, 8/7 Vigilance. Then the last ability says, whenever a creature you control becomes the target of a spell, Gargos fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So you slam your 8/7. They're like, haha, murder it. You're like, okay, kill your 4/4.
On your way out. Wow, that is incredible. Yeah, this card is fantastic. It just gives you good stuff at every point. Fantastic rate.
And the ability just protects you so well from the things these kinds of cards are weak against. Passivism, Unsummon, Murder, any of those cards, it just eats their biggest creature. So,
and interestingly, it works for any creature you control, though you have to figure that they're going to be targeting Gargos first.
But also note that you could be casting spells on your own creatures to trigger this. So if you cast a pump spell,
Wow.
Gargos starts to fight something.
That's insane. Yeah, this card is just absurd.
Yeah, Gargos isn't egg. It's just a huge monster that really,
Definitely,
protects us. It's got the stats, it's got the board presence, and it's got tons of punishment for your opponent if they try to remove it.
It's also like the greenest rare we've ever had. It just
does
everything.
Pretty good.
So A for Gargos, Vicious Watcher. Next is Leyline of Abundance. This is 2 GG for the normal Leyline stuff. Whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green, and then it has an activated ability, 6 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This one does seem like it would be geared the best for limited, but man, I'm still just not excited about 8 mana to pump my team.
This is an F.
Still just not good enough. It's just an F. Yeah. So F for Leyline of Abundance. Next is Nightpack Ambusher. It's 2 GG for a wolf at rare. It's got flash and it's a 4/4. So I'm kind of in for that already.
Oh, yeah.
Other wolves and werewolves you control get +1/+1. Okay. And then at the beginning of your end step, if you didn't cast a spell this turn, you get a 2/2 green wolf token. Wow. So you won't get one the turn that you cast Nightpack Ambusher if it was on your turn. But you can cast it on their end step, then not cast a spell and get one.
And get a 3/3 because this is pumping it too.
That's insane. Yeah, this card is fantastic.
Yeah.
Also, you just get the ability to just ambush things, right?
Yeah, this is a rare. It's game 1. You don't play something on turn 4. It's not like they're going to think, oh, they have that rare. They attack with a 3/3. You're like, humph.
Yep. And then you untap, say go, and you've got 7 power. The thing is, too, is that this tends to scale well with how the game's going for you, because if you're at parity or if you're ahead, you can just, be careful and cast Nightpack Ambusher to help break parity by creating a bunch of wolves. But if you're behind and you need to flash it in and block and take a bit of risk, well, then you do it and you can get a 2-for-1 and take over the game from there. Love it. I would give it an A. I actually think Nightpack Ambusher is just fantastic. Yeah. Wow, what a sweet card. Next is Shared Summons. This is 3 GG for an instant at rare. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards with different names, reveal them, put them in your hand, then shuffle your library.
I think this card's solid. It's not great.
Yeah, it's your 2 best creatures. Mm-hmm.
And it's your 2 best creatures, so it scales a bit based on what your best creatures are, right? Like, if you've got a Gargos in your deck, then this weak card is something I'm probably just going to play, because 5 mana, get a Gargos plus whatever your second best creature is. That's a fine deal. If you're just
draw 2 creatures, yeah.
If you're a limited deck that has no rare creatures, well, that doesn't really do a whole lot,
Maybe just drop from the thing and go draft again. But that was a joke, by the way. Yeah, I like it. I also like that it's an instant, giving you the opportunity to keep up some other way to interact with an opposing creature. And then if they don't do anything and you have the time, then you can share it on summons, untap, and then play your bomb. Yeah. I'm not in love, but I actually like it.
I think it's going to be playable most of the time.
So, but it's like what, a C+?
That's a C+, yeah.
Yeah, C+ for shared summons. But again, it will scale with how good your best creatures are. Shifting Ceratops is next. Is 2 green for a 5/4 dinosaur that can't be countered. It's rare. It has protection from blue, and you can play green to give it your choice of reach, trample, or haste until end of turn.
Yeah, I mean, that's absurd.
Yeah, even considering that the can't be countered part doesn't come up super often in limited, and the protection from blue is going to vary a lot on how good it is. A 5/4 for 4 with the ability to get reach, trample, or haste is fantastic. And then you're just getting free rolled. Like the blue part, when it's not good, it's irrelevant. But when it's good, it's like the best thing you could have. So yeah, I'm in for Shifting Ceratops. That's my boy.
This also looks like probably an A-. It's like a slightly worse.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
It's a B+, A-.
No, it's not a B+. It's an A-. Like 5/4 that could have reach or trample or haste. Also, if they're playing blue, just randomly takes just like, a huge shift on them.
Yeah.
What?
I'm thinking of Jurassic Park right now.
It's a Shifting Ceratops.
No, I get it. Yeah. You can also activate multiples of those, right? You can just be like, I'll give it haste. They're like block with my 1. When you're like, cool, give it trample. Like if you have the mana.
If you have 6 mana, it's a 5/4 haste trample.
Yeah. So That's so bad. Great card. A- for shifting Ceratops. What does Vivian do? You're such a clown.
Vivian Arcbow Ranger is just try to keep it together. This is a professional, family-friendly podcast.
I need a drink. Yeah.
And now you're drinking on the podcast. Just
I'm drinking iced tea and lemonade, buddy.
Whiskey on the rocks. Yeah. 1 green. So 4 mana, 3 of which have to be green. 4 loyalty, legendary Planeswalker at Mythic. +1, distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among up to 2 target creatures. So those can get, it looks like the same creature can get 2 +1/+1 counters, if I'm reading that right.
Distribute 2 +1/+1 counters among up to 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they gain trample until end of turn. So starting off decently. -3, target creature you control bites another creature, deals damage equal to its power to another creature or Planeswalker, actually. So not a fight. They don't. Their thing doesn't punch back. You just play Vivian and you get to rabid bite anything. And then -5, you may choose a creature card you own from outside the game and put it in your hand. So this is a creature card from your sideboard, basically.
Okay, which would be in your main deck unless it was something very specific. But
maybe
I could see maybe one of the protection cards or something. Yeah. By the way, I just read the notes on Vivian. It says you choose how the counters will be distributed as you activate Vivian's first ability. Each target creature must be assigned at least 1 counter. This means that you can't put 2 counters on 1 creature, but give 2 creatures trample.
Right, but you can put 2 counters on 1
2
creature.
on 1 though.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Vivian's great because the +1 ability stacks up really quickly. And then, of course, she can come down you play a 3-drop, they have a 3-drop. You go, Vivian, kill your 3-drop. They play something else. You're like, play a creature, put a +1 counter on both my creatures. And now Vivian is just well defended and just accumulating 2 +1 counters per turn. Mm-hmm. And then the -5 reminds me of Karn the Great Creator a little bit, where what you'll want to do is mostly just put something big and expensive in your sideboard that you didn't really want in your main deck anyway. Imagine that you had a
Vorst Claw or something.
Yeah, Vorst Claw. Vorst Claw is a card you're 50-50 to put in your deck. If you have Vivian, I'd lean towards not playing the Vorst Claw just to have something big to go get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A 6-drop. Yeah. The Ripjaw Raptor, something along, or is that what it's called? Whatever. The 7/6 Menace, for 4 red, those type of cards that are borderline, but
whatever.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. But but when they're good, or when you need something big and expensive, it's nice to have access. Yeah. And really though, it's all about the first 2 abilities anyway, so you're just getting free roll that other part. Yeah. Wow. I'm impressed. Vivian Arcbow Ranger is really strong. I mean, this is kind of what you would expect from a Mythic Rare Planeswalker that costs GGG, but it's really, really good. I would give Vivian an A.
I think Vivian gets an A. The fact that the floor is often just going to be play Vivian, kill a creature, have a 1 loyalty Planeswalker left over. That is just very strong.
Yeah, and if you're ahead on board, the 2 counters that you said adds up super fast, and the fact that it's trample, I mean, you start slamming in, and your opponent's forced to try to attack Vivian, and if they, then you get to +1 more time, the game's probably over. So A for Vivian.
Luckily, we've got some more A's left. Voracious Hydra is next. It's X green for a 0/1 Hydra at rare. It's got trample. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. Also, when it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Double the number of counters on it. Or it fights target creature you don't control. So, imagine for 4 mana, you just play this as a 4 mana, 4/5 trample. Sounds great to me. Imagine for 5 or 6 mana, you play this as just an immense creature. Or if they've got a 3/3 flyer, you play this for 5 as a 3/4 and you have it fight their 3/3 flyer.
Yeah. Wow. That is incredible.
I think on balance, you're going to want to get the double the counters unless you suspect their deck has a lot of removal, in which case you're just going to want to get the value right away.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that the Hydra has trample is just critical here, right? Because it really pays you off for using that first ability for the double ability. Because it's just at any point in the game, this thing's acceptable past, I guess, 4 mana. 3 mana is not really where you want to be. But if you're going to dump, if X equals 2 and you double it, then that's great. And anything above that just gets stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it starts being good at 4 mana. That.
Yeah, that's great. Wow, what a card. And then, like you said, in a pinch, when you need to, you can give up those counters to kill a key thing on the other side, assuming that you have enough mana to do so. Yeah. Love it.
Voracious Hydra's an A. That leads us to our last green card, Wake Root Elemental. So It's 4 green for a 5/5 elemental at rare, and you can play green. So that's 5 green mana.
Okay.
Untap target land you control, it becomes a 5/5 elemental creature with haste. That's still a land.
And it just stays that way.
It just stays that way. I'm not as high on this because, look, it's a 6 mana 5/5, which is like a D level card.
Great. Yeah, it's like whatever.
And then if you have 5 green mana, it does get you a 5/5 every turn, but 5 green mana is kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's a huge amount. If you were heavily green, it does go up a bit. It is an elemental also, which is of note in this set. There's a few cards that care about that. Definitely not as high on this as Voracious Hydra or Vivian.
Basically, where I draw the line here is if you have like 10 or 11 forests in your deck, I would or green sources. The elemental druid also kind of counts in this total. I would lean towards this being like a C. If you can't realistically activate the 5 green mana ability, then this is a D.
Yeah, I mean, think about the Leafkin Druid, right? Like having one of those makes this card way better on so many levels, getting it down a turn early and spotting you a green mana
maybe
towards
two.
Yeah, maybe 2, exactly, especially given that this is an elemental. Yeah, so, that it's a creature. Yeah, I think I would go kind of right in the middle on Wakeroot Elemental.
Like
Maybe
C minus,
C plus is where I would go, depending on if you could activate, like how reliably you can activate it.
I think
because realistically, any deck that casts it can activate it at some point. It's just like,
and it's really powerful once you start activating it. So
it really is.
Like
it takes over
this,
the game.
let's say, just for argument's sake, was 4 and a green to activate, that we'd be giving this card probably like a B plus. So
yeah, an A minus, B plus. Yeah, it would be huge. Yeah. So I'll go C plus on Wakeroot Elemental, but again, any outside green sources you have in addition to your 9 or 10 to 11 forests are going to make this card a lot better.
Yeah,
probably. This is also one that stands to gain a bit in sealed more than others. Okay, let's move on to gold. This is Kalia Zenith Seeker. She's a mythic rare. In fact, actually, all of the golds are legendary mythic rares here, and this is red, white, black. They're all 3 colors, right? Red, white, black. So the Mardu colors. Legendary creature, human cleric. Mythic rare, 3/3 flying vigilance. So 3 mana, 3/3 flying vigilance. Look, we're going to have to try to warp our brains around how often you can actually cast these, because like this color trio doesn't come with mana fixing built in.
It's just
so you're going to have to do this off of dual lands or something like that.
Too, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, these cards look like they're extremely good.
A good way to look at these cards, because we're going to see 5 of them, is I would expect like this. Like Kalia doesn't really cost 3, as in she comes out on turn 3. She's more like a turn 5 to 6 play, maybe turn 7, depending on your mana situation. So keep that in mind. Yeah,
keep that in mind. And then the other thing that we'll note is that, at least in my mind, the 3 of these that have green in their mana cost are going to be advantaged over the 2 that don't.
Because of Gift of Paradise.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a thing that green will get. All right, so Kalia, though, is 3/3 flying vigilance. And when Kalia Zenith Seeker enters the battlefield, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an angel card, a demon card, and or a dragon card from among them, put them in your hand, put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
I'm not super high on Kalia here.
Really hard. Yeah,
you're just not going to have very many angels, demons, or dragons. Very cool card. I'm sure it's awesome in Commander. I think these all seem tailor-made as Commander, or to be commanders themselves. You're not really playing this as an efficient flyer because it's not efficient. Unless you have tons of mana fixing, it's just not coming out very easily.
Not in this. Not if you're playing red white and you're trying to splash black for it. This is not a thing. I think Kalia is like a D.
Yeah, I would give Kalia a D.
Yeah, I mean, it's just castability issues. Yeah. So D for Kalia, Zenith Seeker. Next is Cathis, the Hidden Hand. This is white, black, green for a 3/4 legendary elf advisor. Legendary spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That's basically not worth anything in limited. Exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard. I mean, I could read the rest. Until end of turn, each legendary card in your graveyard gains, you may play this card from your grave. So basically, all of the rules text on this is irrelevant. In limited, it's 3 mana for a 3/4 that's hard to cast. That's a D.
I don't really see why you'd play this card.
I just don't think that you can put
I just don't think it's. I don't think it's just not worth playing. The mana cost is too difficult, and it has no text.
And like you said, it looks efficient because you think 3 mana, 3/4. It's not, right? It's a 6-drop in your deck. So no. So Kethis gets an F. Kaikar Wind's Fury. I haven't gotten the guide, obviously. Is 1 blue, red, white. So this is the other non-green option here. 3/3 flying legendary bird wizard. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a 1/1 white spirit token with flying, and you can sacrifice a spirit to add red mana. So we have a 4 mana 3/3 flying that rewards you for casting non-creatures in a very significant way by giving you 1/1 flyers.
This card's really good.
Yeah. I mean, this reminds me, the comparison here for limited is, what's it called? The 1/5.
Murmuring Mystic.
Murmuring Mystic. Which I think I'd rather have,
sure,
by the way.
Murmuring Mystic's better, but that was, a great card.
But that was the Mythic uncommon in that set. So how good is Kaikar?
Kaikar's worth splashing, especially in a red-blue deck that has a lot of spells in it. If you can play Kaikar and then get 1 spirit out of it, I'm already pretty happy because a 3/3 flyer is pretty relevant and you got a spirit. Mm-hmm. If this survives, you easily get multiples. And, I don't anticipate sacking the spirits for red mana all that often, but it definitely could happen.
It could, yeah.
You're in a pinch, you just need to. So Kaikar is worth building around and is worth splashing for. So I would give Kaikar a B. I think that
a B, yeah.
A very strong
and of
card.
note, I want to highlight that it is non-creature spell, so your artifacts will trigger it, etc. It's not just instants and sorceries. Next is Omnath, Locus of the Royal. This one is 1 green, blue, red for a 3/3 legendary elemental. When Omnath enters the battlefield, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals you control. So 1 minimum.
Yeah.
And then when a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target elemental you control. If you control 8 or more lands, draw a card. So Omnath has kind of a lot going on, but is in the core elemental colors, the Temur colors in the set, is an elemental and does care about having elementals. So, I mean, I feel like if you're doing the elementals thing, then you'll definitely put Omnath in the deck anyway, because that deck's looking to splash anyway. Your Risen Reef deck really wants the 4, the 3 in a red, make 3 elementals or whatever, right? So you're going to put Omnath in that deck.
I think
Omnath
looks
pretty powerful.
Is a pretty strong build around too. I would also give Omnath a B. And I think it actually might even be closer to a B+, just because Omnath, in the mid game could just ping a, small to medium sized creature, but in the late game, it also dominates too, because all your lands start to cycle once you have 8 or more.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems good to me. I mean, this is the type of card
to splash, right? So
yeah, exactly. This one doesn't have as big of a
I like
cost.
B+ for Omnath.
Yeah, same. B+ for Omnath, Locus of the Royal. Next is Yarok the Desecrated. This is 2 black, green, blue. So 5 mana for a 3/5 Death Touch lifelink. This is also an elemental, by the way. It's an elemental horror. And again, these were all mythic. So 3/5 Death Touch lifelink for 5 in a color that does touch green. I like that a lot. Yeah. It's pretty powerful. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time.
So, look, that text plays cool.
What does this do?
It's just the ugliest text in the world. No one reads that as wow, this sounds like a fun immersive game. I understand.
No.
I understand.
So what does it do, though? It's just if you have an ETB effect, you get 2 of them?
Basically, yes. All your ETB creatures double their ETBs. Also, if you have a card that says, when you play a card, if you had a card that said, whenever a permanent enters the battlefield, like Omnath, actually. Mm-hmm. So
you'd get
whenever you play a land, Omnath would trigger twice for the +1/+1 counterpart. Anything like that, too. Mainly, this is a 5 mana 3/5 Death Touch lifelink, but that is worth splashing for. That's just a massive group of stats. And yeah, I could believe that you'd end up with a couple cards that trigger the abilities too, like Cloud Concealer draws you 2 cards or what have you. So
yeah,
I like Yarok. I'll give Yarok a B.
Same. Yeah, B for Yarok the Desecrated. It's just, tough to splash. All right, a couple more here. We've got a few artifacts and then a few lands.
I love this next
first
card.
one. Wait a minute. Isn't this Is this a D&D thing or something?
A classic D&D item. This is Bag of Holding.
Even I knew that.
Yeah. So what Bag of Holding is in D&D, it's like a bag, but it's, it's the magical bag that leads to like an extra dimensional space, so you can just put as much as you want. It's like imagine a movie the guy just pulls out like from the bag pulls out like a ladder, or something like that.
A ladder's a perfect example.
So it's very flavorful, and I think the actual card does have that resonant flavor. I love cards like this. 1 mana artifact at rare. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. 2 tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Clearly that card will be then exiled. 4 tap, sack Bag of Holding, return all cards exiled with Bag of Holding to their owner's hand.
You turn it upside down and dump it all out.
You dump it all out, and everything that you discarded goes into your hand.
That is cool. That is really cool.
Yeah, I actually like this card quite a bit because, look, it's a 1 mana artifact that lets you loot for 2 mana, which, again, that's not like on its face good enough. But then later in the game, you can just pay 4, tap it, and sack it and get like 3 or 4 cards back. Granted,
I like this card a lot.
They're not the best cards in the world because they're the worst card in your hand at the time you discarded them, but they're still good. Like, it's still resources. And if they have Mind Rot or Duress or something, the Bag of Holding picks those up too.
I like it.
Yeah, I do too. I would give Bag of Holding a C+.
This is a C+, right? Like, you're still down a card and it's still a little clunky, but it's sweet. I'm definitely going to be playing Bag of Holding. Next is Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. We have a colorless artifact creature. It's a scout at rare. It's 5 mana for a 3/5. And when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle your library. And you can pay 2 and Wooburg, so 2 blue, white, black, red, green. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play them this turn without paying their mana costs. It's a weird card. Golos. So you have you have a 5 mana 3/5 that rampant growths you in colorless. That's sweet. I don't know how often you're going to activate the ability, but
okay. Imagine the ability didn't exist. I would always play 5 mana 3/5 that rampant growths.
Me too. 100%. Absolutely. Colorless mana fixing on a body that is respectable. I mean, this is how you get Yarok into your deck, like easily.
Well, and this is also like what I think will happen is like if you're playing like a rug deck, a teamer deck, you maybe sneak in one of the a blue-white one of those lands and maybe a swamp, just so you have outs to activate Golos eventually, because Golos can get non-basics. So you can go pull that dual land if you really need to.
Wow, that's really impressive. Yeah.
Because if you can activate the ability, you're going to win very quickly.
Yeah, for sure. You'll win easily.
Like probably one activation will do it. You get to play the top 3 cards of your deck.
That's insane.
Yeah, so I think Golos is a B+.
Same. It might even be better.
Colorless.
Yeah, like it goes into any deck.
Imagine pick one in Golos and just keeping yourself open and opening the door to be nice to be colored.
That's right. And on top of it, the stats line up with the strategy. It's a 3/5. It's a good defensive creature, which is what you're obviously trying to kind of hold the fort while you cast Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. B+ for Golos. Cool. Yeah, that thing's sweet. Next is Grafdigger's Cage, 1 mana for an artifact at rare. Creature cards in graveyards and libraries can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards or libraries. I'm assuming this is even a sideboard, not a sideboardable card in the format. I haven't really looked close enough to know.
I think it's enough.
Yeah, it's enough.
It doesn't even do anything.
Yeah, I think it just does nothing for Grafdigger's Cage. Next is Icon of Ancestry. This is 3 mana for an artifact. As Icon of Ancestry enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. So that's pretty sweet. And then you can pay 3 mana and tap it to look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them and put it in your hand, and the rest on the bottom in a random order. That's not too bad. I mean, I don't know how tribal you can actually get. The Elementals deck seems to be the most pushed one, but it kind of has its own benefits just by playing the cards. I don't know if you need an Anthem.
I think the Anthem part is the most exciting part,
sure.
But the fact that it also lets you dig through your deck for creatures of that type, it goes a long way. Because if it was just the Anthem part, I would probably want like 7 creatures of that type in order to want to justify this, and maybe more. With the 3 tap ability, I'm willing to play this as like 5 because this eventually does draw you a card, and when that card will now be bigger. So I'm not taking this super early, but if you're in Elementals largely, or just notice you've got a bunch of creatures of the same type, this becomes a lot more enticing.
Yeah, if you have a token factory of some sort, that can really go a long way.
Yeah, also soldiers. There's just like a bunch of random soldiers in the set, and that's the Raise the Alarm tokens. So like it all works out kind of nicely.
Yeah, I'm not super high on it, but I would give Icon of Ancestry like a C plus. I don't know that the tribal.
I like it at C plus.
Yeah,
also.
I don't know the tribal stuff is quite strong enough for it to be amazing. Next is Mystic Forge. It's 4 mana for an artifact at rare. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You can cast the top card of your library if it's an artifact card or a colorless non-land card. And you can tap it and pay 1 life to exile the top card of your library. This is cute. This is cute, right? You get to like mess around at the top of your library and get to stuff. The problem is that there's no way in your limited deck you're actually going to have enough artifacts or colorless cards to cast. So you just can't do it.
I actually think this is an A.
Yeah, right. You do not.
In Vintage, when you have Mrs. Workshop,
what the hell? You don't think this is an A?
No, this card's an F. You're never going to have enough cards to make this good.
Last colorless or last artifact, I should say, is Steel Overseer. He's back. 2 mana artifact creature construct at rare. It's a 1/1 activated ability. Tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on each artifact creature you control. So the question we have here is it good enough on its own? And the answer is,
I believe the answer is
Yeah, sure. You play it on turn 2 and you just start tapping it. By the time it's a 3/3, it's good. And if you need to, you can keep going. I think I would just put this in my deck as a 2-drop, right? If I had no other artifact creatures.
By itself, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
You play this on turn 2. 1 turn later, it's a 2/2. Then it's a 3/3. And then it goes from there.
I'm in. Steel Overseer. It's not amazing. I would give it a C plus, and then it has this weird upside where if you do happen to make a few artifact creatures, then it's dumb. I mean, you really only need one other one, to be honest, for it to just be pretty stupid. I would go C plus on Steel Overseer.
I like C plus on Steel Overseer.
It's a B if you have like 2 other artifact creatures or something.
Yeah.
That moves us to the lands. First one is called Field of the Dead. It's a land at rare. When it enters the battlefield tapped, it taps for colorless. So this is a little rough. Like, this better pay us back pretty big. Whenever Field of the Dead or another land enters a battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, you get a zombie, a 2/2 zombie. Nope. I'm not getting, no way in limited you're getting 7 different lands of different names onto the battlefield. So I'm off of Field of the Dead.
No,
I would give it an F. Yep. Speaking of fields, here's Lotus Field. This is a land at rare with hexproof. It enters a battlefield tapped. When Lotus Field enters a battlefield, sacrifice 2 lands. It taps, though, to add 3 mana of any one color.
I like Lotus Field. I think basically think about this as a ETB tapped land that provides any color. And yes, you have to sack 2 lands, but then you get 3 mana of the same color, which is a fine trade-off. The biggest downside of this is a 2-land Lotus Field hand is horrible.
Oh, right. Of course. That's terrible.
It just doesn't work. So I wouldn't play this in a 2-color deck, but I think in most 3-color decks, I think it's worth taking that risk. Because
it taps for any color, basically, right? I mean, it happens to be like 3 of that, but it is any color.
Yeah, in your Sultai deck, it taps for blue, black, or green. So it's like a C-. It's worse than Evolving Wilds, but it is a card you could play in a 3-color deck. Okay. Yeah. C-, D+ for Lotus Field. And then we get sort of a sub-cycle to end things here. We get 5 temples. These are the enemy colored temples. So we get Temple of Epiphany, which is the blue-red. We get Temple of Milady, which is green-black. Temple of Mystery, which is blue-green. And Temple of Silence, which is white-black. And then the last one is Temple of Triumph, which is the red-white one. Now, the temples all enter the battlefield tapped. You get to scry one when they enter the battlefield, and then they tap for 1 mana of their colors. These cards are really good. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to give them a super high grade, but even in limited, these cards perform very, very well. Getting a scry one on your land that also fixes you is really a nice 1-2 punch. Potentially putting a useless card on the bottom of your library, and then fixing your mana at the same time. So I like the temples a lot. I would give the temples a C+, and I would play them even if they were only half on color. Yeah, if you were in like blue-red, you would play the red-white one even if you didn't need white mana. Yep. Yeah, I agree. The scry one is actually really powerful when it's just a land drop, and it makes that enter the battlefield tapped well worth it. So C+ for the temples. All right, we're done. That's it. That's the whole thing. Those are all the rares and mythic rares in this set.
I got to say M20 is holding up so far. I was a little worried about the drop off on complexity and stuff after the sets that we've had, but they did some cool stuff with the commons and uncommons, and these rares look sweet too. So I like it. I mean, the Cavaliers are a little on the nose, right? It's just sort of like let these ones go to 11 and they just sort of pump up a whole bunch of crazy stuff into them. But everything else looks pretty interesting. The Cavaliers and the Planeswalkers seem to be the cards that are the most powerful, the Mythics.
On balance, that's true. More interesting to me is just the concentration of good cards. I feel like, especially in like blue and black, even in green, actually blue, black, and green all are like really deep on good rares. Like
my favorite three colors. Interesting.
We've given a lot of A's here, and I think that this set is looking to me like one where the rares are going to have a pretty big impact. But on the flip side, murder, pacifism, are both common. Like this, we're talking some pretty serious removal. Unsummon can do some work there too. Mm-hmm. Like I don't think that it's necessarily going to be that the rares are going to dominate every single game. I just think that the concentration of good rares seems relatively high.
Indeed. And that will be it for this one. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I guess that is balanced, though, by the Mythics being 3 colors, which means there's like a cycle of Mythic rares. Normally, you'd expect almost all of those to be pretty high impact and limited, and only a couple of them are.
Yeah, and they're hard to cast, too. So it's not like you're going to, there's going to be people with them in their deck that can't cast them. So that helps balance it out, too. Yeah, so this set looks sweet, and hopefully you have a good time at your pre-release, release, and events following that one. That's going to do it for this show. I want to thank our sponsor, channelfireball.com. A couple of things to remind you of there. You can pre-order M20 right now on channelfireball.com. Also, you can pick up your orders if you're going to be going to a Magic Fest for free shipping. You can pick them up from there. And again, I'll put a link in the show notes to the information on that. And then also, if you need to sell your cards, sell them to Channel Fireball. That's the place to go. It's a big game, especially if you want to trade them in for store credit for, let's say, a box of M20 or something along those lines. You can take those rares you aren't using, package them up, send them in. And if you do, they'll give you a 30% trade-in bonus, which is a big chunk extra towards the cards that you were just going to buy anyway, probably. So you might as well take the value on your way through. And again, all that information is over at Channel Fireball. If you want to find us on social media, it's easy. I'm Marshall_LR everywhere. And Luis is LSV. You can also find everything related to the show over at lrcast.com. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
So we're recording this on the 3rd of July. Tomorrow's the 4th. And we are going to have a barbecue. So I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of the, I think, standby recipes that I find myself using over and over again. Stuff like this. I love hosting these things. The first one, and the one that I think recommend the most because most people are likely unaware of it, is actually your own favorite street corn recipe.
Oh God, yeah! I just bought stuff to make that tomorrow too. It's so good.
Like the quick and dirty is you can take corn, even just frozen corn is fine. You can roast it, or I know you saute it in a pan, right? Like but you could also, the one I did last week, actually, I just roasted it on an oven tray in the oven. You don't even need any oil or anything if you're doing that. You can just straight up roast it in the oven because you do want it to get a little, browned. Mm-hmm. And then you add lime, queso fresco, like this like Mexican crumbly cheese, or cotija cheese, lime and cilantro, some mayo, and some salt and pepper, and you're good to go. Like you can also put tahini in there, which is like a kind of chili salt sort of thing. I always do that, but
I put jalapenos in mine too. Yeah,
definitely can do that. Basically, as long as you have the ingredients of like corn, lime, some kind of fat, I think really does help.
It does, yeah. You don't need much, but
no, and some cilantro, you're like perfect. You could even take out the cilantro if you don't want it. Like all of it is customizable, but it's so good.
Yeah, like, I actually made a video. I can put a link to that in the show notes too.
That's it's a classic. It's a banger, as P. Sully would say. So I think that's one that's like super easy to do and is just like such a level up because a lot of people haven't been exposed to this. And if the mayo sounds weird, just trust me, it actually works perfectly in it. Like it does exactly what you want to the composition of the salad. It's the sort of thing a lot of people haven't had, and it is just fantastic. And another one that I've really been liking is just simple veggies like asparagus or zucchini, just a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. I don't know, something about roasting them on the grill or even in the oven is just does wonders for.
Oh my God, I'm getting so hungry.
So, I mean, these are some easy ways to just make it so your barbecues just have that extra zing. And I don't know, I'm certainly going to do both of those things tomorrow. Oh, and then one last one, which another combination a lot of people probably haven't had. It's a watermelon feta salad. So,
I saw a picture. Is that good? I've never had it.
So good. So you basically use you can use, you just like chop watermelon to cubes of feta, mint, and a little bit of olive oil, and then you can put some salt and pepper on as well, and it's really, really good. Something about the juiciness of the watermelon, the sharpness of the feta, the mint also balances it out. Like I would highly recommend. I think that look, nothing wrong if you're just grilling up some hamburgers, hot dogs, doing some potato chips or whatever. All that's fine. I love all that stuff too. But you can, with these very like small adjustments to what people normally have, you can actually make people just really enjoy and remember what you're doing at very little extra work or cost.